Good morning, USF Club. Gerald Adams, I may help you.
Yeah. So what does it take to get in the USF Club?
Are you talking about how much money it takes to get in the USF Club?
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
Any amount. We usually start somewhere 25 bucks, and I think the highest honor we got now is maybe $18,000 a year.
Can I give you a million? Is that possible?
We'll take a million. Never
Okay.
been
All
known to
right.
turn down. Never been known to turn down a penny.
Okay. Well, I'm going to send you the money. Thanks a lot. See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Need your name.
Uh, my name is Barack Obama. Bara. All right. I'll see you. Bye.
Appreciate it, Baracko. Have a great day.
This is a life story with Gerald Clark Adams. It's being recorded at his home in Boone, North Carolina on the 3rd of June, 2014. Gerald Clark Adams, what is it about football that made it become such an integral part of your life?
Well, going back to when I first started high school, we did not have football in the high school I was at Granite Quarry High School, and I always wanted to play football. And we used to, I had a buddy that lived over at Faith, North Carolina. We used to go over to his school, elementary school over there, and we'd play tackle football without any equipment on against each other. And my junior year in high school, I transferred to Boyden High School in Salisbury, which was 3 miles from home, and played football on a great football team. We lost one football game all year. I didn't get to play a lot. I think I played in one ball game, but it was a great experience. And we went on to play a playoff game after the season was over. Ironic, the team we lost to was High Point Central High School, and they won one ball game all year. We lost one ball game all year, and you can imagine who that probably was against.
Same ball game, huh?
And we just were looking ahead a little too far, too fast that Monday morning before that. I've always, after I got in coaching, I used to remind my players of that we had beaten High Point Central the week before, which had beaten a big team out of Georgia the week before that, and we got a little too cocky or whatever you want to call it there, and it was a great learning experience, especially for me going later on into coaching.
Now, but let me ask you about, what is it about the game of football? Is the game of football like the game of life? I mean, what is it?
So like, I guess maybe the fellowship you get out of it, the teamwork you get out of it. It doesn't make it. I think that High Point game says a lot. We had maybe one or two guys that maybe played the best ball game they ever played, but we had 9 or whatever. The rest of them didn't play too well that ball game. But it takes all of you together to do what it's all about, and I think that's the big thing. And it doesn't really. I think state of mind for that particular ball game. I think the High Point ball game. I think we lost on the Monday before at football practice. Just the way we did things, looking back. And I think it carries a lot of life skills into it.
So, is it true that a person's state of mind then can also be important in terms of their success in life?
I think so. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, big time. If you don't have the right attitude, if you go out saying, the world owes me a living, well, they're going to owe you. They're going to have to give you a living because you're not going to make it. If you don't, you got to. I don't know how to put it in words really, but you got to fight the fight and live the life, so to speak.
Did you learn that from your parents?
Well, yeah, in one way, especially my mother. My mother was very competitive person. She had grown up down in Richfield, North Carolina, and went to what's now Pfeiffer College. That was a high school apparently when she was growing up, and she went to school there. And then she and my father was from Taylorsville, North Carolina. Grew up on a farm. Came to Salisbury, and they met somewhere there. I don't know exactly where that. Probably some church event. I got a feeling, but they met there and married. And mother started out as a first job I ever. She used to sell Avon products. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but sold Avon products And my dad was a mechanic, and this was post-Depression. I mean, he made a lot of money. He made $13 most weeks.
And that was considered a lot of money.
That was enough to eat off of. That's when hamburgers were a dime and hot dogs were a nickel too. You know, back during that. That was right after the Depression, and we grew up through that. And then, but my dad was a mechanic, very good, and he worked 6 days a week, and he'd be in at 8, and he'd leave there about 7 o'clock at night, and I remember. Later on, they got off on Saturdays at 1 o'clock. But he had it pretty. He had a rough life. But my mother was in the Avon business, and a guy named Charlie Brown. He was about 5'4", from Wisconsin. Came by to see her one day and said, "Miss Adams," said, "I'm Charlie Brown," and said, somebody had referred you to me. I'm looking for someone to help me. I sell Pittsburgh plate glass mirrors. And he said, and what I will do is, as a matter of fact, there's one over there on the wall. but what I would like for you to do, I know you know a lot of people, and I would like for you to go with me in the homes, help me get appointments and this type thing. And we would go, and when we go, we would take 8 or 10 mirrors, take some with frames, gold leaf frames, some with what they call Venetians with no frame. Beveled, unbeveled, and everything. We take them in the back of a car. You take the back seat out of your car and you stack these mirrors in there. We just stay at the house. Well, there's 3 of us, and we'd stay at the house. But real funny on Saturdays, we'd have somebody around there playing or whatever, and she'd say, "You boys go out and pick us some blackberries, and I'll make a blackberry pie." And we'd go all over the woods and the surrounding country area and pick blackberries and come back, and she would make 2 blackberry pies. And one of them she'd give to me and whoever was with me. And she would say, "You've got to eat every bit of it, because we're not going to let anybody know we had more than 1 blackberry pie for Sunday." And that was sort of, that was a lot of fun.
She sounds like a special lady.
She was. She was with us a long time. Taught me a lot of things that I learned from her when I became a principal, junior high school principal, first year of integration. It helped me a lot. It helped me a lot going through that process. Having known her and known the relationships and things like that we had, I think that made me a better junior high school principal down the road.
Paint me a picture of the area where you were born.
Well, it's called Piedmont, North Carolina, and just I was really born. I wasn't born in the hospital. I was born in the back room of a house 3 miles from town, from Salisbury. At that point, a half mile from Granite Quarry, a little town of 500 people, and they had. It was just different type world. There's a lot of rock quarries. The Granite Quarry, that's where it's got its name. We had 3 big quarries there. They had Balfour and American Quarry and another, I forget the name of it anyway. One of them had filled up with water, and one of them was over in the town of Granite Quarry, and then one of them was what we call Dunn's Mountain. And contractors, they'd go in and they'd buy rock, and they'd buy this rock and crush it up, and they used it for everything, whether it's building highways or whether it was just general rock work. It's sort of interesting.
Yeah, granite today is so expensive. One
That's
would
right.
never dream of using it to build a road with.
Oh yeah, but they would go out and what would happen after they drill down so deep, they would fill up with water, and a lot of people would use that. That's where they go swimming. It was a free situation there to go swimming in, and they had that was great. But talking about swimming, I guess when I was about, I'm gonna say 12, there was a place called Peeler's Lake, just maybe a quarter of a mile from where we lived, right down the highway. And we would go down there in the summer when the lake was open. We would go down there in the summer, and we pitched a tent. Had a tent pitched there, a little army tent, like 2 people could sleep in it. And we'd go down there and camp out every night, and a buddy of mine and I. And we'd get up in the morning, and we would go in and clean the dressing rooms and clean the beach on everything. And we'd wake up at 8 o'clock, probably 8 o'clock, and we'd go in, we'd work about 3 hours there and do everything. And they didn't pay us anything for this, but they let us swim free. So we'd do that, and then we would clean up everything. We'd go home and eat breakfast or lunch or whatever we were eating. If Tweet was there, we maybe had a pie if we ate it all. and then we'd go down there that afternoon and swim all afternoon free. And then that night, we'd leave there about 5 o'clock and go home and eat supper, and then we'd go thumb to Salisbury, and they had a Class D baseball team there called the Salisbury Pirates, and we used to go to all the baseball games. And it was real interesting. The local bootlegger there, Mr. Lowerly, his wife was just a wonderful lady. And right after World War II, they bought 2 brand new Cadillacs. I'll never forget it. And she drove I believe hers was blue and his was white. And hers was a convertible, and his was a regular Cadillac. And we would get out and thumb to go to these ball games. We always thumbed anywhere you wanted to go, you thumb. And we got out. Hitchhike, yeah. Right. And we get out and hitchhike. And Miss Liley got so that she would come, and she loved baseball. His wife loved baseball. And we knew her, everybody there knew everybody. But anyway, when you were in, Miss Liley I'd be standing there thumbing, and she had a good-looking daughter, too. She's always been a friend of mine, Ann Liley. And we'd stand there, I'd stand there thumbing, and she'd come by, and they'd stop, pick me up. And then they'd go to town and eat, get something to eat, and then we'd go to the ball game. And after she'd picked me up about 4 or 5 times, she said, "Gerald, you don't need to thumb out here." Said, "You just sit down out here." Says, "We're going to all these ball games, and you can just sit down here and go with us if you want to go. Just be out here, and I'll see you. I'll stop and pick you." And I did that, so we did that a lot those particular summers, and that was a lot of things you remember. Really neat people that they had. What was really funny, I had a next door neighbor who was her nephew. And we were over one day playing cowboy or something down there behind the house. He said, "Come down here, I want to show you something." And we go down there, and in the woods, it's a little cut. It's like a creek that runs through there, a creek. You in Kansas, you know what a creek is. Anyway, a little branch ran through there, and I said, "Come back here." And went back there and went down this branch. It dried out. And it was barrels that had been put back in the bank down there and covered up, and that's apparently where they stored part of their alcohol. And they had a really nice rock house there, and they had a porch on one end, the garage on the other, and it's really the nicest house in town. And I know old Bill Fisher, I'll never forget. He said, "Come here," and we went on a side porch, and it had a rug there, and he pulled that rug back, and he turned something. There's a trap door that take you. That's another storage place. But they were just really great people to the kids of the community. Ann had like 4 or 5 ponies, and Mr. He would tell everybody, said, you can. Mr. Laird, he'd say, "Y'all can ride these ponies every afternoon from 3 to 5. Get out of school 3:30 to 5 o'clock, but you gotta." But we'd have to take them and bring them over to his house and let the girls ride around a couple times. That's all they wanted to ride. Then we got to ride the rest of the day and then take them back. And that was some of the fun stuff of growing up.
Now the bootlegging, was that considered normal?
Well, he and his brother were both bootleggers. Both of them, they had 2 service stations there, and
But everybody knew they were bootleggers.
Everybody knew they were bootleggers.
Did you ever try any of that stuff?
No. Yeah, I did. I've had 2 drinks of liquor in my life, and both of them were in Montana. And I went out with my right after my first marriage. We'd gone to Montana on a delayed honeymoon, so to speak. And we got out there, and we went to this bar with my uncle, and he said, you need to try one of these. And he gave me a little bottle of liquor about like that. We all downed them and to celebrate that. Did a toast or something. And one other time I was out on the ranch, and he and some others sitting there, and I had a drink. So I've had 2 drinks of liquor in my life, and they were both in Montana.
Now, is that unusual for a North Carolina boy not to drink at all? Where did that come from?
Well, I don't know. They just, my parents didn't drink, and it just, they would take a drink of wine or something like that. Being good Lutherans, we had wine every Sunday. That's the closest we had to it. And I always said the beer, you could give that back to the horse because it had a lot of similarities in the way they looked.
What about smoking? Did you ever smoke?
Yeah, I smoked. I smoked when I was a kid. Smoking was sort of interesting. Of course, I quit when I was 11, but we got our cigarettes. Where we got our cigarettes, we would walk up and down. It was a Fisher's garage, was half a mile towards Salisbury, and we would walk up on the side of the street, and we'd get where people would throw their snubs or whatever you call them. Butts,
yeah.
Cigarette butts. We would take them and strip them. Well, it's because they never smoked them all the way down. We would take them and strip them and get the tobacco out of them and take toilet paper and wrap the tobacco in toilet paper, and then we'd smoke our cigarettes. And I think I quit smoking when I was 11. I quit when I was 11. But we would get on
that was
the
a
bank,
really career.
and we get on our house came off, and then it was a front yard, and then it was a bank about as tall as this is, but it came down at an angle, and we'd go down and lay on that bank, and Mama couldn't see us, but all the cars that came by the road could see us out there laying on the bank smoking. And my sister is the only one that continued to smoke until she was an adult. My brother and I both started and quit.
So there are 3 of you.
It's 3 of us. They were both older than I was. My brother was 2 years older, and my sister was 2 years older than him. She didn't have to go to school but 11 years. My sister's in North Carolina. That's when they changed my brother was the first group. I think he had to go 12 years of school in North Carolina.
Tell me about Perry.
Oh, Perry was Perry got into the family business early. When he got out of high school, he went to work there.
You mean mechanic, as a mechanic?
No. In the antiques. In the mirrors. In
okay.
the mirrors. Mm-hmm. He did all the framing and all that type stuff. And then Korean conflict came up, and he went in the Air Force for 4 years in Korea. What was really funny, he built him a house in Salisbury, and he lived in Salisbury, worked in Kannapolis, 16, 18 miles from his house down, and he drove that every day for his entire working career. And when he retired, his wife bought him a house down between Faith and Kannapolis, which would be 15 miles or 10, 15 miles closer to work after he retired. I told him if he had done that early, all the money he'd have saved on gas, he could have probably retired easily, with been sort of interesting situation. But he did a very good job. He's very conservative. And, he used to change churches about every 5 or 6 years. He'd get mad at the preacher and go to another preacher.
Moved to a different church.
Moved to a different church. But he's been in his last one for quite a while. I think his wife was instrumental in that to start, and then he got involved in it.
So he's still alive?
He's still alive, both he and his wife. Yeah, mm-hmm. They're both still alive. Yeah.
And tell me about your sister.
Oh, Rose, gosh, she's a different world altogether. She was. She ended up her career as a guidance counselor in high school. She's one of the first guidance counselors that full-time guidance counselors they had in the school. She graduated, I graduated from high school in 50, she graduated in 46, Perry graduated in 48. She went to Catawba College and finished up her, and got her teaching degree there, and she worked at the theater and stuff like that, raise her money. But what was ironic was with her college expenses, she went to Catawba College and she paid $350 a year, I think, tuition to go to Catawba College. I came to Appalachian 4 years later, and when I came to Appalachian, the total bill was $300. That was room, board, laundry, that was everything, because it was a state school, whatever. And of course, Perry got out. He got out of high school right when Korea broke out, and so he was going to be drafted. So he went to the Air Force for 4 years, and that's the way we sort of got started. And Rosalie, she went to Taylorsville and lived with my grandmother, which is an entirely different story I'll tell you later on. But she lived with my grandmother for a year up there, and then she transferred to Forsyth County, which is Winston-Salem. And she was a teacher, guidance counselor there, and her entire career was there.
Now, in that period, was it unusual for most of the members of the family to go to college?
No.
No, not here.
No, not. It wasn't. The money wasn't there. That was the big thing. It was the money. It was like us, 2 out of 3 of us went to college. That's a pretty good record. And but it was, I think that most of that went back to money. And a lot of people drafted 51. When I was here, we probably lost a fourth of our football team. They were either drafted or they joined. A lot of guys back then, and I don't mean this disrespectful. A lot of guys, with my brother, they joined the Air Force because they didn't want to go in the Army. I mean, and that was fine too, because once you got in the Air Force, you'd instead of having a soldier out there shooting you, you had a plane full of them shooting at you, maybe, whatever. But it was that was sort of, you had that was about the only option you had at that particular point.
So you would have been a young teenager during World War II.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What do you remember about the war and its impact on your area?
Well, I remember one of the big things I remember was those mentioned gas stamps earlier. You had to have it. I think you had to have some kind of food stamps, maybe to get some certain things, if I'm not mistaken, maybe some type of meat or what. It was something you had to have food stamps for, and you had to have gas stamps for. And you would get maybe 5 gallons of gas a week, whatever. That was a big thing. And I remember when the war ended, they had a big parade. People just came downtown Salisbury, and then people were hollering and screaming. Everybody's really excited. But I remember that night. And but it was a lot of you didn't get to travel like you do now. I think that was the biggest, maybe the biggest impact. I'm not sure about, different people had different different things, but the travel cut back and certain food cut back or certain things. And they used to have like you have fire drills now. They'd have like military drills and things like that, just in case. But we never had anything that come over that we knew about. I'm sure it's people in the country that spies and things of that nature, but it wasn't any active shooting or whatever.
Did your community lose a lot of boys?
Yeah, we had them. The boy that married my next door neighbor, of course, he survived, but he had shrapnel wounds all over him. And yeah, we lost a lot of people. But our direct, really right close to where I live, we didn't lose that many, but it was a lot of them lost, and.
You were only about less than 3 months old when FDR became president.
Yeah.
Do you remember people talking about him when you were a boy? He was president then for a long time.
Oh yeah. Well, see, he was president till I was about out of school, really, till Truman came in. And when Truman came in, everybody, it's such a transition from Roosevelt to Truman. I mean, that was a big thing. Roosevelt, was a little more distinguished, and Truman just sort of told it like it was, and he'd been brought up to say what he thought, and that's what he did.
What did your family think of FDR?
Yeah. Well, they liked him. They liked him. He did a lot coming out of that recession, coming out of the Depression recession. He had some great programs going. Whether it was WPA or PWA or whatever, they had 2 or 3 names for those outfits, and he did a lot of projects and things where the government played. Well, like the Blue Ridge Parkway out here. I mean, that was a result of the and it's thousands of people that go on that every month. From here to Georgia, or from up in Virginia to Georgia.
What kind of were your family financially okay? Were you in the poor land?
We were fine. We grew. Of course, we had gardens. You had gardens, but everybody had gardens, and they had them. Military, the Army had a lot to do. The war had a lot to do with people having gardens back then. They would grow a lot of their own stuff and things of this nature. But family, no, we were just middle class people. I never looked at us as not having what we needed, anything we needed. We didn't have a lot of extra stuff. It was no doubt about that. But we were better off than some of our friends, and not as well off as others. And
did you have a telephone?
Oh yeah, we had one of these telephones. I remember when the phone came in, and this was in the 40s sometime when we got the telephone. But it was, we put it on our house. You came in the back door, you came into the back porch, covered, closed off. Came in the kitchen and dining room, living room, and then you take a left, and it's a bathroom there. There's a hall, and it was 3 bedrooms over there, and then you go upstairs at 2 more bedrooms. And in that hallway is where our first telephone was.
What did it look like?
It was on the wall, and it had a thing on the side, and you would have to call an operator, and the operator would connect you with people. And if I remember correctly on that, and anyway, you would we were 258. Our number was 258 telephone number, and that was a long and 2 shorts, and that's and we had 8 people on our line.
So let me make sure I understand that. So the phone would ring, and if it was a long ring and 2 short rings, it would be for you.
Mm-hmm.
What if it was just one long ring?
It was a long. The Fishers were on our line, and the Sillimans were on our line. And I don't know, somebody else had to be on it because it was 8 but Miss Fisher and Miss Sullivan were sisters, and they loved each other because they talked on the phone for hours at a time. And if you want to make a long distance call, you'd ring on the side and get the operator, and then the operator would connect you.
But it's a party line, so that meant that you could pick up the line and they would be talking.
You get all the news that's happening in the neighborhood. and these 2 sisters would get on there, and they'd talk for 45 minutes sometimes. And they didn't live but a mile apart. They could just.
What about indoor plumbing?
Oh yeah, we had indoor plumbing.
And
yeah.
did you
but
have?
We had now when I was growing up, we didn't have a bathtub when I first started, and I remember Daddy put a shower on the back porch. We screened it. At first it was a screen-in back porch. Then we came in and put concrete blocks and a door and some mirrors in there, whatever. And on the right side we had a shower, and it was something there that they could do laundry in too, I think. But the washing machine was a round washing machine, and had the thing you put your clothes through, ringers on the washing machine, and that was kept on the back porch too. But eventually we outgrew that and it got a little better. But we did have a shower back there, and then eventually they put a tub into the bathroom, but it wasn't there to start with. It just
what about electricity?
Oh, we had all kinds of electricity. Yeah.
When did you get the television?
Television was. I think I want to say maybe 1948, something like that. I think my sister Rose got the television. I think she was working and got the television. But I mean, it was big. It was probably about 14 inches or something like that. If it's, yeah, it's a little smaller now. But no, I'd say it's about a 14-inch television set or something.
So you would have been a teenager by then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Was it exciting? I mean, it was
Oh yeah, Lone Ranger.
the Lone Ranger.
But before that, of course, you had the Lone Ranger. You had at 4:30, there's an outfit called the Briarhoppers from Charlotte. They had the guitar pickers and all that type of stuff, and they came on the radio. At 5 o'clock, the Lone Ranger came on the radio. At 5:30, something like the Green Hornet or something like that came on, and then at 5:45, Tom Mix came on.
Tom Mix.
Tom Mix, he was a Western. He was a Western guy, and then the news came on.
Was the radio something that your family kind of gathered around? As
Oh
you
yeah,
said?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. It's not like now. I mean, they gathered around. People back then would gather around the radio like they gather around television now, and you know, it was an interesting interesting thing to see and an interesting thing to have. Interesting era to grow up in.
I want to step back for a second because you mentioned your grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
What was her name?
Grandmother Adams.
Adams.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Victoria.
Victoria Adams.
Victoria Adams. Now she's she was raised on her husband died way back. I don't even remember him, but anyway, she had several children and one daughter, and Uncle Pink they were the ones that went to Montana, and he went out there. After he was in World War I, Pink was in World War I, and he went out there earlier, somewhere in the 40s, I think, and he went out there and did a homestead and worked on ranches and decided that's what he wanted to do, and eventually bought his ranch, and then, like in 46, I think, is when he bought that ranch, and my aunt moved out there then. And then in 1940, I want to say 48, I think that's about right. Anyway, it was it was after my freshman year in high school. My cousin, who still lives out there, had stayed here in North Carolina and finished high school there to live with grandmother and finished high school there. And she and I saved my money. That particular winter, one of my cousins lived at Faith, North Carolina, and his mother worked second shift in the mill. Daddy worked first, I believe I think that was right, or third and second. Well, they worked two different shifts, and Mike was like 8 years old, and I was probably freshman in high school, sophomore in high school. So I stayed out at Faith that winter to be there with him between the time that one of them left and the other one came a couple hours, and they wanted to make sure somebody was there. So I stayed out there, and I think they paid me $5 a week or something. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was, it was more money than I had anyway. And I saved all that. And I've got and that summer, Doris and I went to Montana together and went on a train. And I think
Doris is?
Doris, my first cousin.
Your
She's the
first
one
cousin,
that still
right.
lives in Montana.
Mm-hmm.
And as another lady was going out there to get married. that was an interesting situation. She was going to get married, and so we got to Hickory, and we were getting our tickets, and the other lady already had her tickets, and we were going to the same place, but her schedule was different, and she was scheduled to go on what they call streamliners back then, from the time we got to Cincinnati all the way, and we were on what we used to call the milk trains that stopped every little town, So she So we got them changed, and we'd already sent a telegram to Uncle told we were going to get there a certain day and all this type of stuff. So we got them changed so we could go the same route she was going. So I'll never forget it. We rode the milk train to Cincinnati that night, and got in there that morning to Cincinnati, and we got on this train, started getting on this train, and it was a guy, in fact, he was a black guy that was on the train, and that's the first time Doris had probably ever seen a black guy before she grew up there in the mountains. And anyway, and he was in a seat that, it was Doris's seat. He just, so she said, is this something, and she spoke to this guy, and he said, oh, excuse me. He was so nice. I'll never forget, he's just one of the nicest guys. I'm sorry. He said, and he was up 2 seats in front of us, whatever. So anyway, we got the seat. We go from there to Cincinnati. Change in Cincinnati, in Chicago. From there to Chicago. And in Chicago, we changed, we get on another streamliner. And this was really neat. And we'd ride that all the way to Montana. It took us a day less than what we had thought it was going to take. Got to Butte, got on another train, and rode down to Lima, and looking for an uncle out there to pick us up. And he hadn't been back to town and got his second telegram from us. So we were in Lima, town of 500 people, trying to help out. And Doris had met this guy, this lady on the train that knew Pink, and she said, the lady said, well, you come with me, and said, we'll put Gerald over here in the hotel. So I go to the hotel, and I get my $2 room and spend the night. So we spend the next day waiting on him to come in. About 5 o'clock that night, he comes driving into town in his pickup, and we go out and find him, meet him and everything. And we leave there going to the ranch, which was 21 miles up a dirt road. And we get past, it's a dam up there, the river, it's about this tributary to the Missouri River, comes out of that valley. And we got up above the dam, and the road was really muddy, sticky. And he just got up there and it just got stuck. I'll never forget it. He got stuck. And he said, well, I better get out here and jack this thing up and put some chains on it. And I said, well, I'll help you. He said, no, I don't want you to get messed up. He said, so he gets out there, got his jack, gets down in the mud all over. I mean, it had to be impressive for me to remember that this long, And he jacks the thing up and puts chains on it, and just like somebody would watch the windshield back here. and we get out there, and that summer was a great summer. We just everything that he raised sheep and cattle. He had like 1,000 head of sheep and probably 400 head of cattle or something like that. I think that ranch had 8,000 acres on it.
You hadn't spent much time on a farm or ranch before, had you?
Not really, no. I'd go to my grandma's on a farm, but she had 100 acres down there. But we go up to that, and that was quite an experience. Been there about I don't know, maybe it hadn't been a month, and he told me one day, he said, you come back next year and I'll give you a horse. I said, horse? That's great. I said, which one you gonna give me? And he gave out a little suburban word that said, starts with H. And he said, I got 100 now, but you just pick out the one you want. 40, maybe he said I got 40. He said, you just pick out the one you want. And I said, I know the one I want. I want the black horse with the blazed face with the 4 white stocking feet. He said, he's yours. He turned around and he said, now all you got to do is break him. I had never been ridden. So I broke him. But he wouldn't let me get on him first. He made a guy that worked there get on him. And the guy got on him, rode him down, rode back. He never bucked once.
And you're a young teenage guy.
I was 15.
15 years old. You're leaving your home. You're going three quarters of the way across the country on a train. First train ride? No, I had been on a train ride before and got. That's a different story. It's okay.
Rose and I had been on a train. We were going we had a guy that lived with my grandma. It was her cousin or something. And anyway, he'd go out and he'd go to these farms and he'd buy chickens, and he would take them from Taylorsville area to Statesville and sell them. And so one day we were at grandma's and we were going back home, and Rose was with me, and Doris might have been with us. My cousin might have been with us, but Rose and I were on that train. We're gonna ride. Anyway, we went to Statesville and got on the train that took us to Salisbury, home. So we get to Salisbury, we get down to a place called Barber Junction. I'll never forget this. Got to a little place called Barber Junction, and they were over there, and it was just a engine and maybe 2 cars. It had a bunch of kids on it, because I remember seeing these girls. I made some comment about the girls on the train, and I said, well, we ought to get on that train with them. And everybody laughed, whatever. And so our train takes off again. The conductor come through here and said, "Lawsy, young'uns, y'all were supposed to change trains back here at Barber Junction." So we on this train, we go to Winston-Salem, and then we get to Winston-Salem, we go to Greensboro. And get to Greensboro, they put us on, we're going, and Salisbury's over here, and we're going here. And we get to Greensboro, and the train that goes from D.C. to Atlanta, which I've ridden on several times since then, was there, and we met that train. We had to sit around there like 4 hours and wait on it. We got there, and then we took that train to Salisbury. So the 10 miles, instead of going 10 miles from Barber's Junction to Salisbury, we went to Winston-Salem, which was another 25, and then to Greensboro, which is another 25, and then 50 back down to Salisbury. And that was our last train trip together before we went to Montana later in life. But that was an interesting train. We got back home. Daddy, of course, was there waiting on us. But what was ironic about that is every time after that, when I would ride the train to Montana, when we would come back, we would always come all the way to Washington, D.C., and we'd get on that train that came from D.C. to Atlanta every night and get back, and I'd get back in home at 10 o'clock, get the same. It was just preparing. I guess this was just preparing me later to come into Salisbury at 10 o'clock at night. But that was sort of an interesting experience.
So, fair to say that you were kind of a cowboy?
Yeah, I always liked to play cowboy. When I was little, I always told my parents, they said, "What do you want for Christmas?" I always wanted a pony, you know. So after I was about 14 years old, I quit wishing for a pony because I knew I wasn't going to get one. I'd always go out. We had a little chicken house, we call it out there, but it's big enough to put a pony in. And every Christmas morning, I'd go out there and look in there and see if I had a pony. I never had a pony until I got to Montana and got that one.
So what would be your job then when you were in Montana? I mean, obviously, you had...
I would do, he had, the river came through, was one border of his property, and as they would draw water off to irrigate further downstream, the river would decline, and fences would go out into the water. And when it declined, the fence didn't get all the way to the water at that point. And the cattle that were down in there, they'd go around that fence and get over in the hay fields. So one of my jobs about every day from July 1st till the 1st of August, whatever, was to go down and run horses out of those fields. That was one thing I did. And we'd go out and we would we went on cattle trails, we went on sheep trails.
What does that mean, going on a trail?
Well, the government out there leases, like back then I think they pay $1 a head to put a cow on government property for the summer. Something, and it might have been more than that, but I think that was about right. And we would have to take these cattle, you drive them, you take the cattle, it'd be about 4 of us, and we'd take these cattle and take them all the way up to the end of the valley, and put them on a bird refuge up there, the cattle. And then before we'd take the cattle, we would take the sheep up and take the sheep up there about 40 or 50 miles and put them on the national forest. And of course, we would go with both groups. I'd go help the sheep herder take the sheep up. Then they had have a covered wagon type deal that you sleep in and that type stuff, and carry everything you needed with you. And then when we get back, well, before we do that, they would shear the sheep early June, end of May, early June. These guys would come from, they'd start down in Arizona somewhere and work themselves up. They'd start down in Arizona maybe in February cutting, shearing sheep, and then they come all the way to Montana. And we would, my first summer out there, when they'd shear them, they'd take the wool and then take all the little stuff that came off of them, just fill them, and they'd tape it and put it in there, and you take a string and you tie that up and take two, and make a figure eight out of it. And that was my job, and I had 4 sheep shearers that I had to keep up to keep everything tied up. And that was pretty tough, but it was a great experience. And while those shearers were there the first time, the lady that went out with us was out there to get married. They had what they call a chivalry. Chivalry was like a big party, a big dance, or whatever.
When somebody got married.
Somebody got married.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to the chivalry, and that was over near Dillon, east of Dillon, get Twin Bridges, I think is the name of the town we went to. And we got there, and it wasn't anybody there. We thought we'd missed something, And we sit there around, and then pretty soon, about 8:30, 9 o'clock, everybody got there, and people started dancing and all this type of stuff. So we stayed there, and the guy, the sheep shearer was with us, the head sheep shearer, and my aunt and 3 cousins. I don't know how we all got in that vehicle, but we all got in there. So we were going back home after it was over. I'll never forget this one either. And we got to a little town called Dale, and all was there was a bar and a post office and a service station. That was Dale. And traffic was backed up on this road on Highway 90, I think it is. Anyway, traffic was backed up. And we couldn't figure why traffic was backed up. And so the sheep guy, the sheep shearer, and my uncle said, well, let's go up there and find out what's wrong going on here. And so they go up there, and they go in about 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and traffic starts moving. They come back, get in the car, we start driving. I said, Pink, what happened up there? Nothing, no problem. Says, drunk out there in the road. Said, I just threw him over in the ditch. He didn't have no business blocking traffic. And that's why he'd do a lot of things. He would move first and think second about a lot of things. I'll never forget that one.
So before we move on, because I want to talk about you playing football, and we didn't finish the story about your grandmother.
Going to Montana.
Going to
Okay.
Montana.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because you said she
now,
was...
where did we? Oh, we got her to Danville. Going out, Rose was driving.
How old was she by that time, your grandmother?
No, she's 70. She's probably 72, something like that. She's in her 70s.
Mm-hmm.
She's in her 70s. And, but we were going through, well, when we got up that morning, I don't know if I told you this, we got up that morning and she wanted to cook us something to eat. Well, we ate breakfast and we left there at 4 o'clock. We went through Tennessee and got right to the Kentucky line, and Rose pulled up to a stop sign and the car did not stop. We were in this nice 1949 Kaiser.
Kaiser.
Kaiser. You used to have Kaiser's, Fraser. World War II, Kaiser and Fraser made Army tanks. After World War II, they made the Kaiser, and mine was called a Kaiser Traveler, and we'd paid. Rose and I bought that thing together that was after my sophomore year in college when I'd gotten hurt, and I got I know that our Blue Cross Blue Shield, whatever it's called in insurance, sent us a check for maybe for $300, and Mother asked the coach up here, said, do we need to turn this money in since they had paid all my hospital bills and everything? Said, no, you might need it later. Said, just keep it. So we took that money, and Rose and I together, we bought this 49 Kaiser, which was a couple years old then, but it was a great car. It was ahead of its time. It had 3 doors. It had 4 doors, but the left rear door was not a door. It just looked like a door from the outside. You couldn't open it. And you put your spare tire against that door and covered it up with something nice, you know. All right, then after we did that, the back trunk would open up, you know, and you could lay the back seat down if you wanted to. I mean, it was way ahead of its time in certain things like that. But we had that particular car. But so Rose was driving, and we were leaving Tennessee, going into Kentucky, and she pulled up the stop sign, and the car would not stop. They had just put a new billboard. It was bigger than this wall over here. It was like a billboard. You see, she hit that billboard and knocked the billboard down. Nobody was hurt. The guys that had put the billboard up were still standing there. Rose backs out. We go on. She didn't stop, didn't say anything. Went on, got across the line, stopped at a place over there, and they fixed their tire. Something had happened to the brakes on it. We don't know what happened. but we got there, and that night we ate supper in Louisville, Kentucky, and Grandma, you know, I don't know if she'd ever been out to eat. Anyway, so we
never been out to eat.
She maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some, but very little.
Mm-hmm.
So we go in, and it'd been raining on us going up there, and it was muggy. So we just ordered some soup. So we got 3 bowls of soup and whatever, and our waitress stood there and watched us eat. That's funny. And about halfway through, Grandma was sitting there, and she'd been eating that soup, you know, really devouring it. And all of a sudden, she looked over there, and she looked over that way, and she grabbed that bowl of soup, and she turned it up and down. So anyway, that was one of our first experiences. And everywhere we'd stop, she would tell everybody, guys back then, you know, they would pour you gas for you. And everywhere we'd stop, she would tell them that she was from Taylorsville, North Carolina, and we were from Salisbury, and that we were going to Montana to see her daughter and grandkids and all that. I said, Grandma, I said, you don't have to do that. I said, look here on the front of the car. It's got the name of the motor company, Salisbury, North Carolina. I said, they read that. They know we're from Salisbury. You don't have to tell them that, you know. She said, oh, that's neat. So she never told anybody that after that. So we leave there, and we go up to Danville, Illinois the first night. We get to Danville, Illinois, and go to a tourist home. I don't know if you know what a tourist home is. That a home is just a place where somebody maybe had a home and had 3 to 5 bedrooms in it, and they just used one of them, and they'd rent out rooms by the night. And that's the way people used to travel, especially traveling salesmen used to do that a lot. So we go to this place, and we're talking to the lady about sleeping there that night. And apparently she got $4 a night for a room. And I was talking to her and heard Grandma in the back. Did I hear that woman say she's going to charge us to sleep here? I've never heard of such a thing. I've never charged anybody to sleep in my house. When people go in back of market, they used to stop at my house. I've never. And we went, so we finally convinced Grandma that was, you know, that's the way the lady that made her live in and all this type of stuff. I still never charged anybody to stop in my house. Next morning, Rose told her, said, when you wake up, I know you wake up, or you call me because we want to get out of here. So Rose says she wakes up the next morning, she looks over in one eye. Grandma's sitting up there dressed, hadn't said a word to her, so she wakes up, gets out, and said, why didn't you wake me up? Well, you were sleeping so good, I didn't want to bother you. So we leave there, and we get to Iowa for lunch. I'm sure we were there for lunchtime. Yeah, I think it's in Iowa. Anyway, we got to Iowa, and we pulled in there, and gonna get I just told the lady, I said, well, you bring us all a hamburger and some fries and something to drink, whatever. And so we sitting there eating, and Grandma, she's sitting there and she eats a French fry. And then she sits there a little longer and she eats another French fry. She said, Gerald, said, mine's taters, what's yourn? She had never had a French fry, and here she was, 72 years old, whatever, and never had a French fry. And, and we stopped one more time. It might have been there, I think it was the next day, the third day out. We stopped and ate, and started back to the car, and said, Gerald, you dropped this on the table back there. She brought me my tip back, which was neat. And then we went from there to, everything was pretty smooth after that till we got to Idaho, and Snake River was out in Idaho. It was over the highway, but you could see maybe, and I remember they had things and we had to drive through that river. I'll never forget that experience. We got to Montana, and as soon as we get, Montana is a little town called Monada, one store, one whatever, post office, and whatever, and that's where you turn and get on the dirt road to go to my uncle's. The first turn you can go, and you get top of the hill. I said, right over there is where they live, and it's going to take us probably 30, 45 minutes to get over there. We'll be there at 3 o'clock. We get there at 3 o'clock and have pretty much met everybody and everything. And she walks up to me and she said, well, Gerald, said, I've seen them all, and I'm ready to go home whenever you are. I said, Grandma, we're here for the summer. She said, I know that, but I want you to know I've seen them all, and I'm ready to go when you are. One other thing, we took Rachel, one of my cousins from out there, was in a concert. She's a musician, and they just have in the school there, they have some type of, she played the piano. And we were sitting there, and Rachel was getting ready to play, I think. And there was about 8 of us lined up. And she was on one end, and Pink was on the other end of the room.
This is in the audience.
This is in the audience. And right before Rachel gets on, she leans out there and said, hey, Pink, I'd heap sooner be home in bed, wouldn't you? And everybody in the auditorium could hear it. And after that, she'd tell people, she said, they say, well, how do you like, everybody called her Grandma. I said, Grandma, how do you like Montana? She said, I hate it. Said, the wind blows all the time. I'd heap sooner be home in Carolina.
I heap sooner would be home.
I'd heap sooner be home in Carolina. But that was quite experience. We took her to Yellowstone Park, and that, of course, that was exciting. She wanted to bring one of the bears home and give it to one of the grandkids. and when we got ready to leave Montana, right when it started to pull out, Pink, her windows rolled down or something, and Pink picked up a hat somewhere, a cowboy hat, and threw that in the back seat. He said, take us back when we get to Carolina. And well, I don't know, we were going down the road somewhere coming back, and I looked in the back, and she was sitting back there with that cowboy hat on. But that was an interesting trip. Got to know your relatives a little bit.
So you would come back, and you were going to high school at the time, but you weren't playing football in high school.
I wasn't. At that point, no. I hadn't transferred. I transferred to Boyden High School at Christmas my junior year.
And you made that transfer in order to play?
To play football, yeah. That's the only reason I went up there. But it was probably the best move I ever made.
Why is that?
Just to play football, and then I got an opportunity to come up here. And after my senior year in football, I talked to, and we were, of course, that was, the next summer, we went back to Montana again. I went back to Montana again the next summer. And because I remember I lost a lot of weight, and our football coach wasn't really happy over that. But it was all of that was pretty interesting experience. But I tied in with summer jobs after that. I'd do different things. I worked for the VA hospital, helped build a VA hospital there in Salisbury one summer. But the year I got hurt, I went my sophomore year up here. After my sophomore year, I got we went up that next summer and went to Montana again, and those
Sounds like-
Montana trips are really interesting trips, really, because we'd go a different way or whatever. Sometimes later on in life we'd driven out there, and we've flown. Julie and I one time we flew to Seattle, Washington, and rented a car and came back across, and you know, it's just different ways of different things.
You know, for somebody who spent most of his life in about a 150-mile radius.
Yeah.
Those must have been really important trips for you.
They were big trips. It was great. It was a great experience because I always liked still like Western movies. I watch them all the time. Julie goes crazy over the Western movies I watch. But she said, "I believe you've seen that." I said, "Oh yeah, probably 4 or 5 times." But they need to make some more. But that was a big experience there, and then my. And here or going up here or whatever. And he said, well, with your size, and I wasn't that big then. I weighed 100, and my playing weight here as a sophomore was 188 pounds as an offensive tackle. He said, your size, you might want to go to Appalachia because I run the T formation. And said, with your size, that fits in better with that type of stuff. So I came up here and played freshman ball, and then that's when Korea broke out. We had a lot of guys that leave here in January or February before coming back for that spring. We were on the quarter system then. Before coming back on the quarter system, and a lot of guys went in the Army, and I went from like 6th offensive tackle to starting. I mean, I didn't start the first ball game. Started the second ball game from then on, and it was a lot of attrition and that type of stuff. But
so you had a lot of opportunity to play that you wouldn't have if the war hadn't.
If the war hadn't broken, I probably never started. They'd probably have kept us, but I was a walk-on. And then
what does that mean?
Non-scholarship. My first year, I just worked. I'd worked in the VA hospital that summer, I guess, and to get enough money to go. And then my sophomore year, we were playing. I played some in the Guilford game, and then I started in the Western Carolina game. Was the next ball game we played, and that was really interesting. They scored. We beat them, and we got that on video somewhere. But we beat them here, and then they intercepted a pass and ran in a touchdown, and they just left us in for the extra point, for their extra point. And I don't know, nobody has touched me yet. I blocked the extra point. So then they kick off, and I'm still in there. And when they kick off, they do what you call an onside kick, just a sputter comes at you. And it came to me. I got it and went forward and bounced off of one guy and turned around. About that time, about 10 of them hit me, I think. But that's some of the stuff you remember, But then we played Elon and Lenoir-Rhyne, and we went down to the University of Tampa, and they had a football team then, and we went down, and we were leading them 13 to 6, I guess it was, and they scored, or 14, maybe it's 14 to 6, and they scored, and after they scored, they had to kick off to us, and when they kicked off, they did what they call an onside kick, just sputters down. It was over my head. I looked back. David Emerson was supposed to have got the ball. He got it. He was at the end. He was supposed to come up and pick it up. He didn't come up. He was back there running in place. I go back and jump on the ball. And I was thinking, I was counting 1,000, 1,000. When are they going to blow the whistle, And they blew the whistle, and the guy came down, and he's just trying to shake me loose from it. And he kicked me right here in this left kidney. And when it did, it ruptured that kidney. And
so you at that point you were like early 20s?
Yeah.
I
was probably 19. 19 when that happened. 18, let's see, I was 17, 18, about 19, I was about 19 then. And anyway, they took me to the hospital, and I'll never forget. I was in a situation I didn't know where it was. It wasn't a lot of light in there, and I thought I was in a hallway, and I was saying, well, Coach Hoover is the tightest person in the world. He handled the finance. I said, Coach Hoover has got me out in this hallway so he don't have to pay for a room for me for the night. I was thinking all this wild stuff. And I said, he just saved a little money. That's fine, So the next, whenever I wake up, I'm in it's in a big ward, but they've got partitions between everything, and it looks like you're in a hallway. So anyway, I wake up, and they keep me. They tell me, they say, well, if you don't quit bleeding by a certain time, I guess later they told me that, said we're gonna have to go in and take your kidney out. But anyway, we'd played on Friday night, and then the next day, this Coach Hoover, he was really funny. He was a basketball coach here also, but he did the handle on the finances. He comes in, and it's a nurse down there lived. She grew up in China Grove. I remember talking to her, and he says, "Ma'am, is it anything that I can do to help with this situation?" She said, "We need blood." He said, "I need some blood." He said, "Well, I wish I had known that an hour earlier." He said, "We just had a busload of football players leave here, and they'd all give them blood." And he said, and you got to know Coach Hoover, the way his appearance. He's very thin, very withdrawn. He said, "I'd be glad to give blood." And she said, "Sonny, you look like you need all the blood you got." But I had a good friend of mine who just died just recently, about a month ago. In fact, Gerald Barger, who played at Duke, and he was telling me later, said they were playing Maryland that weekend, and he was sitting there one Sunday morning reading the paper, and it said Appalachian student, Appalachian football player, whatever, critical condition in Tampa, Florida. So he was reading about me in the Washington Post, which I thought was sort of ironic, really.
So
but those people, they were really like, those people, 5 days, I bled for 5 days. The 5th day, they said, if you don't quit bleeding, we're going to. And the 5th day, I quit bleeding. On Tuesday, I quit bleeding on Tuesday.
Is there long-term effects on this?
Well, I can't get 100% peed off anymore. I mean, 10 years later, 8 years later, 1962, I believe it was I was having some problems, and I went to the hospital there in Danville, and they took a third. I lost a third of it. So that was sort of interesting. But
did you continue to play football?
I went back. Well, they weren't going to let me go, so I went to Montana the next summer. That's when we took Grandma out there, I guess. And I wrote this doctor. I said, I am not going to be a manager or do all this stuff they want you to do. I want to play football again. So I got this doctor to release me. Said I was okay for me to play. So he released me to play. And we went out, and back then you had 2-a-day practices. You practice in the morning, practice afternoon. And we had a scrimmage. The last day of 2-a-days, we had a scrimmage. And we were running a punt return. And on that, I was playing right defensive tackle on that, and I hit, turn, I go down, I set up the line. Anyways, and then we all go down, and then the runner gets outside of us. And get down there, and when I do, I block a guy, and somebody tackles a runner, and about 5 of them follow me, and I break a leg. I have a broken ankle, and I cussed them for 6 months and told them, I said, if you're going to break my ankle, why don't you do it the first day of two-a-days? Once you get through two-a-days, you know you got it made the rest of the season. But that went back out, and that was I didn't. After that, I didn't play. I got my junior year before that. That summer, I got a phone call from Coach Broome, who's he was our offensive coach, and he said, Mr. Pritchett said he needs a resident manager of Justice Hall down here, and said he'll take Lester Hard and Bob Clendenin or you, and Lester, he said, Lester's running Euland, Bob's the mailman over there. Congratulations, you're the new resident manager of Justice Hall. So I said, thank you, you know. And we left there and went from there to, and then I was playing, you know, and then broke that ankle. And that was, the next year though, my senior year, I was running that dorm and got a phone call, and there's a guy from over on campus, and he said, the headmaster down here at Patterson School for Boys is looking for a football coach, and said, Coach Duggan said you're to take the job. So they paid me $100 a month to go drive from here down just about to Lenore and back, and I did it. But that was a great experience. That was a 6-man football thing, and just private. They played a lot of private schools. They played a lot of Class A schools in North Carolina, and it was a good experience. It helped me later on in life.
What were you studying in school?
Girls.
Yeah, besides girls and football.
I was a social studies, physical education major, and prepared to go out and teach history or whatever and coach. And that's basically what I did.
So you really wanted to be a coach? Yeah,
that was what it's all about. But I left after that. I helped that spring of my senior year. They used to have recruits come on campus and try out, and I helped them with Bob Clendenin, who was my roommate at one time, and I'd worked with those guys that spring. I remember that. That was quite an interesting experience. They got us some pretty interesting things.
So when did you ended up going into the military? Well,
that was my senior year, before I got to the military. But my senior year was I got a haircut up here, and the guy said, yeah, I was talking to a guy named Bill Luther, who was down here from Danville, Virginia, and said he's not going to coach anymore. Said he's going to city recreation, and said they're going to be looking for a football coach. Said you might want to try about look into that. So I did, and I talked to Bill and whatever, and went up and talked to the superintendent. And of course, by that time I had some pretty decent references, running a dorm, playing football, and everything else that went with it, and coaching some. And I went up and talked to the guy, superintendent there, and and he said, I said, well, I got to be honest with you. I said, I could be drafted any time, draft ready. He said, well, we know that. And he said, tell you what, you take a chance on us and we'll take a chance on you. And I said, well, okay. I said, because their coaches they paid coaches a little more there than they did in North Carolina at that time. North Carolina, a teacher was making $1,800 a year. The coach was making, and in Virginia, in that county, and in North Carolina, if you'd been doing that, you wouldn't have been paid for it probably, for coaching. That would have been, just went with the job. But up there, they did that. They paid you, they were going to pay me $2,100, and then they were going to pay me $1,200 to coach 3 different sports, football, basketball, baseball, which put it way out of line. And then right before that, I got another phone call and said, come up, we want you to run a summer recreation program. And that's back when guys were making $25 a week running recreation. And I said, well, yeah, what's they going to pay me? They said, we're going to give you $350 a month. So I made an extra $700. So I started out pretty good in the economy the way it was at that time.
But it sounds like a lot of this was word of mouth, that one person told another person that you were good, and another person told another person.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
A lot of it, a lot of it. That's exactly right. But that was a good experience.
So you went through, you started your first job out of college.
I was at Broswell School, which at that time was a 1 through 12 school. But
was
when
that
we
the name
played,
of the town, Broswell?
No,
Oh.
Broswell was about halfway between Danville, Virginia, and Martinsville, Virginia, on Highway 150, on Highway 58, going up through there, and right in the middle of tobacco land. First day up for practice, had 13 football players to report, and you needed about 30. And second day, it was 9. I went and told the principal I was going to resign. He said, no, don't worry about it. He said, tobacco's going to be over this weekend. It'll all be in, whatever. So the next Monday, I had 24 ball players out. And I told somebody, that wasn't too bad. I said, just one of them went on to play at the Baltimore Colts. Had a boy named Donnie Thompson who probably did as much with football as anybody he went on to play. He played ball at Ferrum Junior College, and then he went to Richmond and played at the University of Richmond, and then I think he played with the Baltimore Colts 3 or 4 years, but he was 1 year short, I think, of getting that lifetime money that they get now. But he was good. He was one of the best ones I had.
Anybody else there that you were really good?
Yeah, I had some kids. Somebody asked me not long ago who was my top 3. Donnie was probably the best football player I had. A boy named Sam Boyd, whose both brothers, older brother had played for me, and the other brother had come up here when I was working that spring. He'd come up here to try out, and their dad. This was an interesting situation. Sam was a punter and a tight end on our football team, and I took him to Catawba College when he graduated from high school, and back then you could try out, went down, and they said, well, let's see you kick the ball, Sam, and Sam kicked that ball about 75 yards. I'll never forget it. Just dropped it, punted it at 75 yards, and he said, let me see that again. And he put him in and added 5 more onto the second one. He said, I think we can find a place for you down here. But he was a basketball player and a baseball player. And I'd already helped him. He'd gone to Hargrave Military Academy for 1 year after he got out of high school. But his daddy would go to Stewart, Virginia, buy a truckload of apples or pick them or something up there. I don't know what it did. He'd come down and park his truck beside the highway and sell apples off the truck. That was pretty tough. And Sam, when he retired, he was the president and CEO of Clyde Pearson Furniture, which is big time down in High Point. Done really great in life. I had another boy, Clyde Burnett, who came up here as and stayed 1 semester, 1 quarter, but he was a great football player. But he wanted to get married, and his wife he had this girlfriend. It was really funny. His background, when he would work in tobacco fields, and when he would work in when he'd get all these other guys would have been thumbing out from town and everything to get out to the college and be out there a half hour early laying around, all that stuff. And we'd be on the field, and we'd see somebody running up the highway. He lived maybe a mile away. So see him running up the highway, going into the gym and get dressed, and all the rest of them, it'd take him 30 minutes to get dressed. He'd be in there about 3 minutes, and he'd be out there. But he was another athlete that those 3 guys are pretty tough as far as.
Tobacco farming was not an easy way of life, was it?
That was tough life, yeah. But that was Danville, Virginia, the world's best tobacco market. That's what it was advertised as at that particular time. But that was an interesting situation up there.
So
We used one thing about the tobacco market though. I coached baseball, and they let us come in, like on bad days and stuff like that. They would let me bring my pitchers in. We would go in and we would do everything inside a warehouse. We'd go down there and practice it, just like we got the indoor practice facility, which you saw up here. We had that in the tobacco warehouses down there, and I took advantage of that.
you didn't have to lose a day to the rain or the
That's
storms
right.
or anything.
You just go down and you can get out earlier, especially you finish your basketball, get ready to start baseball. It's too cold to get outside or whatever. You could go down there. The gym in that school wasn't big enough to do any of that stuff, so we'd go down in the tobacco warehouses.
What would that look like? Would you be like standing around tobacco leaves or?
No, see, it was all empty. It's just like a big empty warehouse when they got all the tobacco out of there. But that was an interesting situation.
How long did you stay at Broadsville?
Well, I was there from 54 to 56, and then Uncle Sam decided he wanted my services from 56 to 58. That was sort of an interesting situation. I went to, I was sworn in Salisbury, and I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and processed everything there. And they said, you're going to Fort Meade, Maryland, with the 2nd Armored Cavalry. And so I thought, man, I was going to get to ride horses. I didn't know what. so I go up there, and that's a tank division. Is what they had. They did. They would go out ahead of everybody else, and at that particular time they were guarding the border between Germany and Austria and that type of stuff. Is post-war, and that was pretty interesting. They sent me to radio school. They sent me to. And then I was radio school a while, and then they sent me to Fort Dix, New Jersey, for personnel, and I came back and I kept officers' records and all that type of stuff, and that was a big help for me later on. And,
In what way?
Well, after I got back out of the Army, of course, I went back into school administration, and then I was an elementary principal for 6 years. I was a junior high principal first 3 years of integration. And then I became assistant superintendent for personnel in Pennsylvania County Schools, and that you had to do the same thing I was doing in the Army. So that was a big help for me. And I'll never forget, we had some type of complaint over something, over records or whatever. I think it was dealing with sick leave for women, pregnancy or something, whatever. Anyway, they came in from Richmond. And the guy came in and stayed 3 days looking at our records.
This was when you were at school.
This is when I was an assistant superintendent of schools, and the guy came in and stayed 3 days. And he got through and he said, "Well, I'm through." I said, "Well, let me tell you. Let me ask you a question." I said, "Did you find anything bad or whatever?" He said, "No." I said, "I'll tell you something. I've been in this so long. I forgot how many years." He said, "But y'all got the best records I've ever seen." And what happened when I went in, I told Linda, our secretary, I said, "Linda, I want to put this stuff in this order, just like we had done it in the Army," and which worked, so that paid off a little bit. So a good experience.
Now, when and during this period of time did you meet your first wife?
Met her, a guy named Dallas Womack, who was one of my football players. Let's see, this would have been probably in 1955. He got hurt playing football, and I went to see him, and I saw this good-looking nurse in the hospital, and I said something to Dallas about her, and he, "Oh yeah, I know her. She's Barbara Sutliff, whatever. Yeah, she's been waiting on whatever." And anyway, so I talked to him. And I don't know if I called her or he said he fixed me up with a date with her. And anyway, I go on my first date, and it's not the same person I saw in the hospital. She looked better than when I saw in the hospital.
But that was Barbara.
That was Barbara. Yeah. That was funny though. Yeah. And
But thank goodness for his mistake.
That's right. But they had. She grew up out from Ruffin, North Carolina. Her dad was tobacco farmer out there, of course, we had 3 kids and a great life. And she got cancer, and it wasn't anything you could do about it. It was too late. And
When did she die?
died in 78. I guess it's 78.
78.
I'm not sure about that date. I can't remember dates anymore. Yeah.
But your kids were already older.
Oh,
by
they were
then,
grown. They were all right there in that formative, right in high school or college, or they were all right. There's 2 years difference in them, and they were all pretty much. Richard was he was at Madison when that happened. And,
So when you were assistant principal, would you also be coaching in some of those jobs, or?
not when I was assistant principal. No, when I became assistant principal, I got out of the coaching altogether. I was athletic director then, assistant principal and athletic director.
Did you miss the coaching?
Oh yeah, you always miss it. But then I was coaching Little League with, when I got an elementary principalship, I was a Little League coach. Robert and Richard came through those programs, yeah. And we got to play, since I was coaching, they got to play in the, in the Mill League over at Schofield, which was sort of like a youth program, you know, but that was pretty neat. And we had our elementary schools. We had basketball teams. That's all we had with elementary schools. But they played through all that type of stuff. Richard, one of the most interesting things about Richard was we played Martinsville High School, and Richard was center on the football team, and halftime, everybody comes in off the field, you know, for halftime, but Richard doesn't come, and our band goes out his band, the high school band, goes out on the field to play, and here comes Richard. Took his helmet off, but he's still got his football uniform on. And he gets up there and he plays a trumpet solo, and when he gets through playing, he just takes it and goes on and puts his helmet on, goes back in, goes down with the team, whatever. I thought that was an interesting transition type thing.
You could do both of those pretty
easy.
Yeah,
pretty much so. Yeah.
I want to ask you about your philosophy of coaching, because it's changed over the years.
Oh, yeah.
People do look at it differently. When you would see somebody who was young and promising in whatever sport, how do you get the best out of them?
Oh, you just got to use a little psychology, I guess.
Well, can you put any of that
I mean,
into words?
I had different type coaches. I had, you know, I just had different type coaches. I had very good coaches when I was growing up. John Kirk wasn't a better person than John Kirk, and he was here, and I had another good line coach, M.L. Barnes, in high school. I still called him not too long ago and told him something about it's crazy. I won't repeat on this video that he had said to me when I was in high school one time, and he just straightened me out. I did something wrong, and
so it's
and I was in his classroom, and whatever I did, he took me out in the hall and he told me if he ever even thought that I'd do something like that again, he's going to take me and do whatever, which I won't repeat on air. but he straightened me out early in life.
So discipline is important.
Discipline is very important.
What about encouragement and all
Oh yeah,
that?
you got to encourage, and you're going to have some kids that are never going to make it, and you're going to have some kid that you think is not going to make it that's going to make it. You know, I mean, it works both ways. You got a kid that thinks he's going to be an All-American, and he's just mediocre maybe. And then you got another one that thinks he's mediocre, and he turns out to be. You know, it's just like the Donnie Thompson that I talked about. I mean, he was an example of just he just loved to run over people, and he was big enough to do it. But it was, you know, different traits and different things, and you get a different mindset from a kicker or a punter than from something else, maybe, you know, from another type ball player.
Was it heartbreaking to see kids who really, really, really wanted to do well but just didn't have it?
Yeah, oh yeah, you always have that, but you try to get something that they can do that they can be successful in. I mean, I think that goes a long way, really. In my mind it did. Just people, I never forget, the only time I was ever really disappointed in what was sort of shook up, and I came back from Montana one summer, and Coach Ludwig, when I met him, I had just been there the spring before, and then went from there to Montana that summer, and I apparently lost about 20 pounds, and oh man, he didn't like the fact that I lost 20 pounds. I remember him saying that. I never, stuff like that sort of sticks with you. I think you got to be real careful what you say to kids as a result of that, having been there, done that.
Because it has can have a long-term impact on them.
Yeah. Because everything people, I think people really look up to coaches maybe more than they do a regular classroom teacher. And I'm not saying that anti-classroom teacher, because they're in a different relationship with them all the time. It's a role model type thing, sort of. But
were you always aware that you were being the role model for these kids, whether you wanted to or not?
I think so. Yeah, you had to be aware of what you said, what you did, and I used to back when I was principal, you used to they paddled kids and all this type of stuff, and I always had. It's really funny. I had if I'd catch a kid smoking, I'd ask him what kind of cigarette it was. And, if his coach had the lucky strike, he was in trouble, because he's going to get LUCKYSTRIK, about 10 licks with the paddle. So I had this one kid, he was mean as a snake, but he's smart. He's one of the smartest kids we had. He played ball for me. And I caught him smoking one day later on when he was a senior, after he had finished playing ball. He's in downstairs in the restroom smoking. I said, "Godfrey, what kind of cigarette's that?" And he had been there before, he said, L&M. 3 licks.
3 licks, yeah, at least.
It is probably coaching a lucky strike. I'll never forget that. That's funny. But kids, different things, different kids.
Did you ever coach your own kids?
Just in Little League. They played, and Richard and Robert both played on the school field teams, on the Little League stuff, yeah. But I never, but Little League was pretty much, I spent, when I was the elementary principal, first started golfing a little bit, and we'd take them out with us sometime, but then I just quit doing golf, because trying to spend more time with them growing up. All 3 of them.
So Robert's the oldest.
Robert's the oldest, Richard's is next, and Ann's the youngest. And they do some crazy things.
Well, let's just go through each one of them. Tell me about Robert when he was a kid.
Robert one thing is, right after I got out of the Army, he was still living down right off of West over there, and I know one day he took off. He's always do a habit of just taking off and running and whatever. And one day he just disappeared from the house, and we couldn't find him. Anyway, I went up on the street, got the car, went up, and got up there and found he was running down the middle of doggone Westover Drive, just flying. He always he could run fast. And that was Robert, and he none of the kids ever gave us any trouble. They were always pretty decent kids as far as, what they were supposed to do and what they would do. Every now and then they'd get crazy. One summer we took them to Montana, all 3 of them, and we had a station wagon, I guess it was, and we put one of them in the front seat with me, and one of them in the back seat, and then one of them in the back of the station wagon. And so they wouldn't be, as long as they didn't touch each other, they were okay. But once they started touching each other, they were in trouble.
Because they were like 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years
between?
apart.
Yeah.
But they did pretty good. They were all very active in things in high school. You know, Richard played football and it was in the band and everything. And Ann was a cheerleader, and Robert had played. He got hurt playing football, but then he played basketball and baseball, and he was offered some help with baseball scholarship. Like, he wanted to go to school where his girlfriend at that time was going, so they went for a year, and then he transferred back. And they've all done real well. You know, the two of them got their doctorate, and Richard's got his master's, of course. And but they've all done well, and they're all involved in college teaching right now. You know, so.
The teaching thing continues.
Yeah, that's right.
You're pretty proud of that?
Yeah. But they seem to enjoy it. You know, I told them to do what they want to do. You know,
What do you think they got from you?
I don't know. I hope they got something good. They probably got a little hard-headedness.
Hard-headedness, okay. What do you think they got from their mother?
Just, I don't know, just responsibility and things of that nature, I think. Yeah.
What role did...
I think that maybe got Robert thinking a little more towards the medical field because of what his mother had gone through with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And did she have a professional career?
Oh, she was a nurse.
She was a nurse. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And we got, you know, these grandkids are nurses. We got nurses from the windows now.
Nurses and teachers.
Nurses and teachers. Yeah.
Well, when you got into this assistant principal position, where was that at?
That was at Broswell School.
At Broswell.
Okay.
Brosville, excuse me.
Brosville, yeah, that's fine. But that's about going from Danville, Virginia to Martinsville, Virginia, so on the highway there. Yeah. And when I was there, I was just there as assistant principal 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went to an elementary school, which was like 4 blocks from our house.
What was that called?
That was Coates, C-O-A-T-E-S, elementary school. And I was there for 6 years. And then went to Blair's to the junior high. And that was that was an exciting experience. I told Robert, I said, Robert, you tell no one that I'm your father. This was the first year of integration. And that was an interesting situation. But we treated everybody the same. You know, it was just, we had kids coming in there from 20 miles away to the junior high school. And they just came 1 year. They came 8th grade, and then our 9th graders, Pennsylvania County, you know, is like 50 miles across, and we got the lower third of the whole county. And the 8th graders, the ones that some of them came 8th and 9th grade, and but the ones that lived out on the extremities went to the high school in the 9th grade. It was sort of an interesting situation there. But,
so you had to basically take this school from being was it an all-white or an all-black school?
It was an all-black school.
An all-black school and integrated.
That's right. That's right.
Did you have any training? Did anybody tell you?
Well, you had to use a lot of common sense, you know.
Was it hard?
It was tough. You never knew from one minute to the next what was going to happen, you know. But we were very lucky. I would tell my faculty, I said, when the bell rings for the kids to change classes, you walk to the door, you step outside in the hallway, and you watch the flow of kids as they go to the next classroom. And I think that was one of the best things that we did, because everybody in there was being supervised as they'd have an opportunity to mingle with other kids, and I think that was probably good. One of the good things. Another thing we did, our school started at 8:30, and at 10 minutes to 3, the bell rang to get on the buses in the afternoon. And I met with them, and when they first got there in the auditorium, and had 2 sessions, and told them all, because I had 1,042 kids, and I told them all this. I said, now, if you ride the first bus, the bell is going to ring at 2:50. And at 2:55, at 2:57, another bell is going to ring. And when that bell rings, the buses are going to pull off. So what you want to do, you want to make sure that when that first bell rings, you get your stuff, you get on the bus. One kid asked, what happens if we're not there? I said, at 2:55, the buses leave. If you're on them or not, the buses leave, and it's your responsibility to get home any way you get home after that.
So they had responsibility.
They had responsibility, and when the bell would ring, first couple of days, they had the buses were all parked here, and they go here and here and back out like that, and there's a big yard out there. And I'll never forget seeing these kids. Every now and then you'll see one that come out and he'd cut across and he'd catch a bus because see, some of those kids were 25 miles from school.
Sure.
And so they got the message on the responsibility.
Yeah, I bet they did.
But that was an interesting situation.
We're gonna.
That's right.
And,
let me tell you something. I won't put this on there, but when I went in the Army, the night before we went to a movie, and it was an Army movie, and somewhere in the movie they dropped a hand grenade into a tank and blew it up. And then I go through process, and then they say, you're going to the 2nd Armored Cavalry, that's a tank division. Then while I'm up there, I go to another movie. And it's an Army movie, and it's a guy coming down across this hill, and he's got a radio strapped on his back. He's running down the hill, and I take a machine gun and cut him in 2. And the next day, Sergeant calls me. He said, Adams, you're the luckiest guy in the world. You're going to radio school. I thought that was hilarious.
Not what you wanted to hear. Okay, so we're almost finished here, but I have a couple more things I wanted to ask you. Tell me about the role of religion in your life and in your faith and what that's played.
Okay, been a Lutheran all my life. I was raised in the Lutheran church. My parents were Lutherans. Went to St. John's Lutheran Church in Salisbury. At one time was the largest Lutheran church in the country. And you went there, and I was trying to think. I was thinking about this the other day about something. Anyway, we had catechism. When you become 6th grade or whatever, you go through catechism, and 3 years of it. And we had catechism. And the first year, the pastor's wife taught the class. The second year, associate pastor taught the class. Third year, the pastor taught the class. And in the third year, you go to service and you make notes on his sermon and all this type of stuff. But what was funny about this, I guess, I don't think it's sacrilegious, but every Wednesday I would say I need to leave about 5 minutes early, 10 minutes earlier, because I'd ride the school bus to the city limits and walk up, and then I'd throw them back home or ride home with Daddy. So, but the reason I wanted to leave because on Wednesdays at the State Theater they had stage shows, and they had all the burlesque and all that type of stuff. And I would go down and go to catechism for an hour, and then go down to the State Theater and go to the burlesque show for an hour, and then go get a ride home with my daddy. But that was here and there. But growing up in that church was big. That was a big time. They had a lot of opportunities. They had great ministers. Always have had great ministers there. And then left there and went to Danville, and then went to the Lutheran church there, and then from Danville we came here, of course, and go to the Lutheran church here. And
Is there a
and
time
kids,
is there a time in your life in which you felt particularly close to your God or your higher power?
not more than any other time. Always pretty close. Yeah, pretty close. We were probably when I was in Danville, I was probably a little more active in things I did. You know, I'd serve as a lay assistant and all that type of stuff. You know, and here now, you know, usher. We're head of a usher team here every 6 weeks. We get the opportunity to serve as ushers, and just been good. But I was really, went through all the processes and everything that Lutherans have to go through to get there, you know, as far as catechism.
Where's your family from, historically?
Like England and Germany?
Mm-hmm,
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
England and Germany. The Finks, my mother was a Fink, and that's German, of course, and the Adams were from England. They came from England. And,
You know anything about
no,
them
not back there, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
No.
So we got just a few more minutes, and when did you know? What's your proudest accomplishment of your life?
That's tough, right there. I've had a lot of great accomplishments. I don't know. I think maybe work-wise is probably was the last few years up here with what we've done. The turnover and going from $250,000 back when before we came to $3 million in this particular job. I think that's pretty big. Serving the military, that's always plays a big part, and being happily married on these occasions and having kids and that type of stuff is, and that's pretty much what my life's been all about.
What about professionally? Was there any mistake that you made over the years that could have changed things?
I don't know. Pretty much about everything that I've ever tried to get into, I've done that. You know, I've been real active. A lot of things. When I was in an organization, when I was in Virginia, I was in a lot of stuff. You know, like the governor of Satoma for that area of the state, and school personnel, state president, and all that. All of the roles I've been in, I've been, in the regional areas, I've been pretty much in leadership in them, and
I forgot to ask you about Yosef. What is the Yosef Club?
Yosef, it was in the 40s. Yosef Club was scholarships for student athletes. That's what the money goes for. In the 40s, Yosef is the mascot. And the guy, I think he'd been in World War II, came out and he just dressed up like an old mountaineer. And they were talking about what they were going to call him. And they came up with all kinds of names, Mountaineer and everything, And one of them was sitting there, and he said, "Well, why don't we just call him Yosef, like yourself?" And that's where it comes from. It comes from yourself is Yosef, it's just a cut down version of it.
And a kind of a southern version.
Southern version of
Yeah.
it, right? That's exactly right. Mountain version of it. But that's pretty much.
It is fairly unusual, you'll have to admit, that the college mascot is in your wedding picture, however.
Well, see, I tell most people I was a preacher. Of course, Tim Smith doesn't really appreciate that. But that's pretty neat.
What do you, when you look at professional sports, or college sports, I noticed I looked up the year you were born. There were 120 teams in college football.
Football? Oh, okay.
Yeah. 10 more than the year before. That's how fast that they were going.
Yeah.
And there was one bowl game. Only one bowl game in 1932. So, you know, when you look at that, and now you look at today, what's the good part and the bad part of that?
Well, I think the bad part goes back to the fact that people it's the dollar involved in it. I mean, everything is money, based on money and this type thing. The good part is more kids maybe get to participate now than they did at one time. You have bigger teams and this type thing. And but again, another bad part might be that now we have X amount of kids that can receive scholarships. You're limited as how many can receive scholarships, but then you're also limited as to how many can be on a team, period. And that cuts out that walk-on kid that, well, I was a walk-on kid. So that would have, I would have never had the opportunity, but in today's society, I'd have never had an opportunity to come in here in 1st of August and do whatever, you know, that I had the opportunity to do. And it's probably affected my whole life, everything that I've done since then, you know. But that to me maybe would be the case.
And then sports aside, let's just look at the education part of it and how education has changed since you first got into it until today. What do you think is going well, and what would you say isn't?
I think when I got into it, I think more people were getting into education than there are that are going into it now. As a lot of people going into it now as a last resort. And back then, people were they go into education and they might stay in it, and then for economic reasons maybe would move out later and go into other types of work. But I'm a little concerned about this thing where they're talking about, I don't know about the tenure thing, but the North Carolina's talking about doing away with tenure, and I don't know if that's good or bad. We never had tenure, but the only disadvantage to not having tenure, to me, is that you get some crackerhead principal in there or administrator in there that would just let somebody go they shouldn't let go. I mean, that to me is a big disadvantage of not having tenure. Now, you get the regular teacher, the regular good teacher. If you got a regular good administrator, you're not going to have any problems. That's not going to ever become an issue, because they're both looking for the same thing and they know what their goals are and this type of thing. But that's the one thing that concerns me a little bit. And I have seen a couple of administrators that through their actions would have caused people to want more tenure. And the other way around too, you know. Then you have teachers that are still there as a result of tenure that probably shouldn't be there. I mean, to me, that's just from an outsider looking in, having been there. And,
walk me through a football game day here.
For me?
For you.
Well, if it's a home ball game,
yeah,
we leave here. If it's, let's say it's a 3:30 game, that's the majority of our games are at 3:30. If it's not homecoming or one of these deals where you got homecoming parades and all that stuff, sometime in the morning I report down here to the gym, which is right across the from the football stadium.
Would you look like this? Would you like a?
I would look pretty close to this, but I have a tie on, coat and tie on probably, and but we go in there and we have to set up that morning everything. We have a big trailer outside. We store all of our tables and chairs and this type of stuff. But we had, as soon as, well, to start with, maybe at 10 o'clock in the morning, we'll have some people in there to help us to set up all the tables, chairs, and all that type of stuff. Our serving tables, our beverage tables, And then around 1 o'clock we'll open up, and 600 people will come through there and eat, and a local restaurant will donate our food for us. We got 6 restaurants that this year are doing that, and we appreciate it very much. And we'll do that, and it'll be about 600 of them will eat.
And these are people who donate to the school?
They're people that give $1,000 or more to Yosef Club. And they come in and eat, and then at 2:45 we start tearing things down. And we have to be, this last year, the best we ever did, I think it was at 3:05, we were through tearing it down and got everything locked up, and then we'll go to the ball game. And I've been lucky. I made a wise move several years ago that I got club seats in the chancellor's box. So, so that's neat. So we go over and go in there, and Julia usually goes earlier than I do because she ought to be there for the club. But she'll go in and get over there, and then I come in and we watch ball games, and then a lot of times after the games we might take somebody out to supper or something like that, and that's typical. And basketball, we do the same type thing. We don't have as much food and that type of stuff, but we do the same thing for football and basketball. And we do that on all home basketball games, that's during the week and everything else. But football it's pretty time consuming, and it can drive you down pretty quick, right? Yeah. But I enjoy every minute of it. They won't tell me they want to send at least $1,000.
$1,000. That'd be for the next person. This is how you do it, man. Look at this video over and over again. I'm gonna try to turn this light on. See what is that okay?
Yeah. It gives you a lot of light.
Yeah, that might do it right there. Let me see what you got right there. Here's that. Let me do this. Okay. Look this way for a second.
This is a test.
Let me do that. And you're going to be looking at me actually right here. Yeah, don't look at the camera.
Oh, yeah. Look at my horses up there.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, where are you going to be? You going to be sitting down? You going to be
I'll be
sitting
right here. Sit down. All right. Got a pen and a piece of paper?
Yeah.
There we go. That's for me. Oh, it's for me.
Oh. That's the only pen I got.
Yeah,
Right.
I got, yeah. That's all right.
I got-
Pencil be good. Give me a pencil.
I don't know. We got a pencil here. Wait a minute here.
Yeah. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. There we go. Yeah, you got a pencil right there.
That's right there. Try that.
All right.
Make sure it writes okay.
Yeah, we're good. Okay, we're gonna start. Ready?
Yeah, whenever you.
Where are we right now?
Huh? We're in the football stadium, athletic complex at Appalachian State University.
And what do you do here?
Oh, I'm the Yosef Club director.
And what's a Yosef?
Yosef used to be the mascot. Yosef is still the mascot at Appalachian. But back when they were talking about naming the booster club, they had all kinds of names, and somebody said, why don't we just call it the Yosef Club?
Did you ever want to be Yosef?
Not really.
Yeah.
At that point, I didn't in life. Yosef's a tough job. They entertaining today. They entertain about 30,000 people ball game.
Right. So, so we're going to go back to when you were, say, 8 years old, somewhere like that. You were a little kid. You were still in elementary school. going to Granite Quarry?
Granite Quarry Elementary School.
Yeah. Tell me, like, what was a classroom like at Granite Quarry Elementary School?
Well, I guess 8, I would have been second grade,
Second
third
or
grade.
third,
Second or third. Second grade, I was in a split grade in the second grade, and then I was in the regular classroom first grade. Split second grade, third grade. I went back to normal classroom.
Was split first and second?
Second and third.
So you were around the smart kids?
Around smarter kids all the time.
And what's the advantage of a split classroom?
Well, then you had, they had enough, the money wise, they didn't have enough to buy 2 teachers for those kids, so they just took, maybe it was 45 kids in a grade, each grade, and they took 30 and put them in one teacher, and then they took 15 and 15, and the other teacher had second and third grade.
So they had 45 second and third.
Yeah.
And do you remember that? Do you remember like what it was like? Did you know any?
I remember I sat on about the 5th seat. I was back near the back of the room.
Right.
It's 2 rows of second graders. And Kenneth Fisher now were in there, and I don't remember anybody else. Gene Peeler was in there, I think.
And what did you do if you got in trouble? What happened to the kids that got in trouble? Did you get in trouble, and did the kids get in trouble?
Oh, I never got in trouble in elementary, in second grade, I don't think. They might put you out in the hall if you talked too much.
No spankings, no.
Oh, yeah, they'd do that. I mean, that was understood. You might get a spanking, depending on the teacher.
And what was the spanking like? What's the, I mean, was it a paddle? Was it a ruler? Was it your hand?
They different teachers, women teachers, they might have a ruler or something in the hand they come out and pop you with, but nothing detrimental to your health, I don't think.
All right. And all right, so you were in the second, third, 8th grade, and what did you do when you went home? What was like a day like?
We'd get out.
You'd have been 8. Perry would have been.
Perry was 10. Rose was 12.
So when he was in the 5th grade, you were in the 3rd grade.
Yeah.
Rose was in the 7th grade.
Yeah, but Rose and Perry got out under the 11-year plan, I think.
Do you remember them being around school? I mean, elementary school. Do you remember them being around? Or
they were there. Yeah, well, you didn't see them that much. You know, you went to your class and you see them at the time to get on a bus or walk home or whatever you got to do.
Yeah. Did you take the bus home? How did you get home from Granite?
Bus. We could ride. We ride the bus, but a lot of days we'd walk, and we'd go by Dick Lyerly's, and he had 3 ponies. He let all the kids in the neighborhood ride. We'd go by and ride ponies till 5 o'clock, and then walk home.
And then, and when you got home, what'd you do? Just hang out? I mean, it's pre-TV, right?
Oh, yeah. I don't think we had TV until the 50s.
Right. So
maybe, no, I'm wrong on that. Sometime in the late 40s had TV. Had a little small TV, like a 12-inch or something like that.
Who did you play with? Did you play with Perry, or did you play with your buddies, or?
Buddies, neighbors, whatever. Fishers, the Walser, John Walser would live across the road diagonally from us.
Right.
Fishers lived up the hill. Clarence Boston lived through the woods.
Is it Boston?
Boston, B-O-S-T-I-A-N. Yeah, Boston. Yeah. He lived near back in the woods, going towards the Duns Mountain.
Yeah. And did all those people did you go to church with them? Were they all Lutherans? Were they all?
No, but didn't any of those people I mentioned go to church with us? The Fishers went down below Rockwell to church, where Mr. Fisher, I guess, had grown up down there, and a lot of people went to Granite Quarry to church. In fact, we went to Granite Quarry for Luther League, and on Sunday nights and things like that. As we got a little older, more associated with the people there than we were the ones.
So pretty much most of your friends were Lutheran, for the most part. A couple Baptists.
Not necessarily, but well, Rowan County was big Lutherans. So
Yeah.
you had a lot of friends. I had a lot of friends who were Lutherans back then. Yeah.
And what would y'all do? What would you and the Fishers, and when you got home, what's
we'd play ball sometime. Get out there. We'd go on Sundays. We'd go up to the Fishers. We got out of church before they did.
Okay.
They went down to Lower Stone, down near Rockwell to church, and we went to Salisbury, and we'd get out early, and Perry and I would go up, and they'd be eating lunch about the time we would get there. And And they would, as soon as we'd get there, they would hand us the ice cream freezer, and we had to turn the ice cream off. Not to had to, we had got the opportunity to turn the ice cream. He turned the ice cream because we were going to get some of it. So we always had a bowl, extra bowl of ice cream on Sundays from up at the Fisher House.
Yeah.
And the boys up there loved that because they didn't have to turn the freezer.
And what was your favorite kind of ice cream?
I don't remember.
Banana, strawberry, chocolate. Did they have chocolate then? Or
Well, they had all of them, but strawberry probably was pretty good back
peach.
then. Yeah, peach and strawberry.
Whatever's in season.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And all right. So, and then that's kind of like till you got to. When did you start officially playing? Did you play any organized ball other than when you got to high school?
No organized ball. We didn't really have organized ball back then at lower levels. I mean, like your little league and all this type of stuff. You didn't have that back then.
Did you play when you got like older, and did you play baseball or anything when you got to Granite Quarry High School?
No, didn't play baseball.
Okay, so.
No, we would go out when they were doing practicing basketball. Even we'd go out. There'd be several. We just go out. They'd take them in the gym for physical education and practice basketball, and we'd go out and play football out on the the field there between the high school and the baseball field. It was sort of a recreation field out there.
And how did you know how to play football?
Well, I don't know. We just learned.
I mean, what got you hooked? I mean, did you hear about somebody? What was the?
We just probably saw people play and then just enjoyed it. Thought it was a good sport.
Right. So you couldn't see it on the movies and TV. There was no TV.
No, you didn't have TV then, so you.
The only team was in town, Salisbury High School, right?
Well, Catawba College.
Oh, did you go to Catawba to watch games?
Oh yeah, we used to go to Catawba.
Free, or did you have to pay?
Oh, you had to pay. I think you had to pay $1 or
Okay.
$1 and a quarter, maybe go something like that.
And did you know the positions and stuff, or did you know?
Yeah,
Just kind of
yeah. But you were seeing back then. It was a transition from the single wing and double wing to the T formation.
Okay.
And in high school ball, we played single wing football, and that means that your left tackle moved over to the right side, beside the right tackle, and then you had center, guard, space, and left end, and you'd run. Everything was on. You did a lot of double team blocking and things like that.
Were there 11 players?
11 players, yeah, had 11 players.
And in a single wing, who takes the ball from the center because they're standing
Well,
back?
they would snap the ball directly to the ball would be directed directly to the fullback or the tailback. They were sending back, so it was maybe a half a yard.
Was there a quarterback then?
Quarterback was a blocking back.
Okay, all right.
He lined up behind your right guard, between your right guard and your inside tackle.
And the T formation.
And then you had a wing back, just like you do now.
Yeah, off to the side.
Off to yard out, yard back, wing back.
And so
most of that went to the right, and that was because we were in a right-handed frame of life, probably.
Okay.
But they did. Some teams every now and then would run single wing left,
Okay.
and that was sort of an innovation.
That was a trick play.
Trick play innovation at that time.
So people say they were cheating if they played.
And back then too, you could. They had the old the old huddle play, where they just they would come out of the center would come out of the huddle before everybody else did, and he'd just throw the ball back, and all the other 10 guys were back there.
All right. So they just kind of
and they changed that rule, then so you couldn't have over 4 people in the backfield. You had to have. That wasn't necessarily rule. I don't think the rule said you had to have 4 in the backfield. I think the rule said you had to have 7 on the line, which automatically left you 4 in the backfield.
Yeah. And what's the T formation?
T formation, where you have a quarterback under the center,
Okay.
and then you would have all kinds of variations off of that. You could have 2 halfbacks, a left halfback, right halfback with a fullback between them, or you could have one of your halfbacks could move over to what you call a wing back, a yard out and a yard back.
Right. So what would so the quarterback wouldn't really throw the ball in. It's not like anything what you'd call it. That wasn't the
Quarterback was a blocking back. Quarterback usually would call the plays, that type thing. What was in the quarterback would not, like you say, would not throw the ball. Basically, they might throw 1-2 times a year.
So who was
tailback?
The tailback was the
that
star.
would be that would be the back furthest back. You'd have a wing back, a yard out and a yard back, a blocking back by between the guard and
Kind of
tackle.
like a fullback now.
And then a fullback would be sort of behind that guy, and then a tailback would be behind them. And they could run backs right or backs left, but basically, your old school was that everything was to the right except your left guard and your left end.
Right. And what would a play be called in the huddle? Give me a play. This is not a T formation.
Well, maybe it could be a 48. It depends on whether you ran your odd to the left or the right. Most people ran your odd numbers to your left, and your
so 48's the four back.
Four would be the tailback running around right in.
Okay. Who was the number one back?
Number one back was the wing back, like 315.
Okay.
That would be the ball would come to the fullback. He would maybe do a spin, and he would hand the ball off to the wing back, who would run through the 5 hole, which would be between the guard and the end.
3 to 1 to 5.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 3 would be like, it's like a baseball play.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So everything's based on the numbers.
Yeah, and then passes, most of them would be, they'd call them 80s or whatever. Had different patterns, outlined for different things.
Right. So y'all were playing, as kids, y'all were playing tackle?
Oh yeah, we played tackle. We played faith.
Were you kind of arm tackling?
Yeah, you know, arm tackle, basically. Yeah.
Anyway, so you played dodgeball with your buddies. Did you play army and stuff and horse cowboys?
Oh yeah, we were cowboys. I never forget. I got a new pearl handle pistol for Christmas one year.
A fake one?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And we were going to. Bill Fisher lived beside us. He and Rose were the same age.
Okay.
And we were out in the woods. We were going somewhere out there to play cowboys, about 4 or 5 of us. And he and I were going to be the Lone Ranger and Tonto. And of course, him being 4 years older than I was, he was the Lone Ranger and I was Tonto. And he said, Kemosabe, why don't you got that new gun? Let me use your new gun. Use your new pearl handle pistol, and you take this. And he gave me this old black gun that's about to fall apart. That's sort of funny experience. Crazy some of the things you remember about that kid.
So Lone Ranger was a radio show and probably a movie by this time. So
yeah,
you actually
Ranger. I don't remember the movie, but Lone Ranger came on the radio at 5 o'clock, 5 to 5:30.
And did you have a picture of him? Did you know what he looked like?
Oh yeah, he had the mask on.
Yeah, so you saw pictures of him like at the store?
Yeah.
So it wasn't like you saw him on TV. You just saw him.
No, you didn't see him on TV.
It's kind of leave your imagination.
Maybe as I got in high school, I might have seen him on TV. I don't even remember that. But I know he came on at 5 o'clock. Right. There was a program came on at 5 o'clock, and then I believe the Briarhoppers came on at 5:30. That was a country music group out of Charlotte.
Right.
And,
what other radio shows did you listen to?
I think Lone Ranger came on. Not the Lone Ranger, but Superman came on.
Superman came on.
Yeah, and there's another one, I forgot what it was, but similar to that.
Right.
But they were all around 5 or 6 o'clock. That's when
Anything the whole family would listen to?
Oh, it was, they had a program with your top songs.
Okay.
I forgot what it's called now, top 10 songs of the week or something like that. That would come on at night. I think it came on Saturday night, if I'm not mistaken.
So they would just play them like a radio, like a DJ.
Yeah, like a DJ, yeah. And they'll say number 10 is so and so, and then you get that. And this week the leading song is so and so, whatever it might be.
And your parents like that too?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because this would have been in the
That'd have been in the 40s.
Early 40s. So you're talking Glenn Miller, you're talking Tommy Dorsey, stuff like that. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I got you. All right. So, and y'all would like that music too. Did y'all like that music too?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, but me, I liked all Western stuff. I was a cowboy in the outfit.
Yeah. And do you remember when what started the cowboy thing? Do you know?
I have no idea. Just
got into it.
Yeah, just got into it. We used to play cowboy in the woods, like I said.
When did you start watching cowboy movies?
Well, you could go to the movie back then. If you wanted to go to I don't know what they call them, Class C or D or whatever, the lower range, I guess, of production cost movies.
Right.
You went to the Victory Theater in Salisbury on Saturdays. They had cowboy movies every weekend, and I think they might have had cowboy movies all the time. They might have had something else, but I don't remember anything else there. But they didn't have your Gene Autry's. They had your Bill Hickok's, Wild Bill Hickok. Bill Elliott was Bill Hickok. You had those type movies there, and you paid 9 cents to go see that.
Okay.
And the reason for 9 cents was if you paid 10 cents, you had to pay tax,
Okay.
a penny tax.
Right.
So instead of making the kid bring the extra penny, they gave him a penny back, and they didn't have to pay tax on the 9
Buy
cents.
something from the concession stand.
That's right. Well, you put 4 more pennies with it, and you could buy something for a nickel, you know. Or if you wanted popcorn, I think that was a dime back then. But then the State Theater, that was a step up. That was the Gene Autry.
Okay.
But they had other movies there also. But Gene Autry and Hopalong Cassidy would be at State.
They were the stars.
They were well, pretty much so.
High
But
production.
and Roy Rogers had been there too. But then you went to the Capitol. Probably Randolph Scott would have been at the Capitol.
Okay.
It's a little different type Western, but all other kind of movies were at the Capitol Theater.
More adult.
More adult.
More
type stuff.
romance. More, yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
There's a girl in it, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She wasn't a cowgirl.
Whatever happened to Randolph Scott?
I don't know. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Randolph Scott grew up in Charlotte. I think
Okay.
I'm right on that.
So, did you ever, in your mind, in your imaginary mind, did you ever want to be a movie star or just a cowboy or both?
Oh, well, I was a cowboy later on.
Yeah. I know you eventually ended up being one in Montana, but did you ever see yourself doing what those guys? Did you ever want to be a movie guy?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really.
You'd rather been an actual cowboy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Interesting life.
So by the time you got in, let's say the 7th grade, you know, kind of what would be junior high now, anything changed much? Probably
No.
got out more, got to travel a little bit more.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
go to town?
You'd go to, well, we went to town whenever, because we'd always thumbed to town. You know, we'd
Okay.
thumb to town. We didn't have to, because you didn't have, back then you didn't worry about who was picking you up or anything. You know,
Right.
you just, somebody'd come by and they'd stop and pick you up and you'd ride to town. If you didn't get a ride, you'd walk if you wanted to. But we never had to do that, but we were always pretty lucky in getting rides.
Yeah. And did you hang out with Perry much, or was it just your buddies?
No, Perry, after Perry got in high school, Perry started working in a store in Kannapolis right much.
Okay.
And we had, you know, what they call a glass shop down there. Mr. Charlie Brown and Mama had done that in a partnership.
Right.
And Perry went to work in a high school down there. And,
How did he get there?
well, I really don't know. During the war, during WW2, they would go to town. They'd ride to town with Daddy, who worked at the garage there, Ford Motor Company, and they would ride up there, and then they'd get on a bus and ride to Kannapolis.
Okay.
And when they got into Kannapolis, there was a railroad track right beside the old road that went through Kannapolis, and
Right.
the mill was on the right side, and you could turn left under that railroad track, and you go over to, it was a highway over there, where
Okay.
Highway 29 went through. That's where the store was, and they would walk from there over.
Okay.
And
This is Grandma doing this.
this is Grandma doing this. This is Mama doing this. Yeah,
Right.
but that was sort of a interesting situation. And then the bus came back at a certain time. They always left to come back. You know, as one came back up about 5 o'clock, 5:30 maybe. They catch a bus the same spot, and that was due to the gas being rationed and all that type of stuff.
Now-
As a result of the war.
Yeah. Now your mom, Ruby, was I don't want to call her ahead of her time, or she was just an independent, didn't seem to let things get in her way, business person, you know, businesswoman for the time. I mean, did you see that as an unusual thing compared to your friends' mothers? Did you?
Oh, very, very few friends' mothers had jobs similar to her, like especially owning her own store
Right.
and things like that. No, my friends didn't have that.
Did you see that? Did you think that was unusual then, or was it just something?
No, I just thought it was great. You
Yeah.
know, it was because we'd go down and work and do those type things, you know, and we'd make frames, make picture frames, and then put mirrors in them, and put pictures in them, and or we would do that.
Did you make the frames? Did you cut them and do all
Oh
that?
yeah. Perry was really big in that. And Brother Perry was really
Right.
big in that. But I did that also.
So you were involved in the family?
Yeah, family business.
What time would Grandma get home?
I should be home. They closed the store at 5 o'clock, and it depends whether they drove up or had to ride the bus up.
All right.
Because if she had to ride the bus up, then she'd go ride the bus to Salisbury and then walk down to the garage there where Daddy worked, and then they'd come home together.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
but
Did they talk about money much?
no, we didn't have a lot to talk about.
I'm just saying, you know, I mean, you know, did you ever hear them talk about it? Did you ever hear them?
No, never really heard them talk about money much. Just whatever we could do, we do. And
Right. 'Cause she
Yeah,
had, she had her own finances.
she
right?
had her own See, before she got into that, she was in the Avons.
Right.
She sold Avon products, which,
Right.
you know, mainly to ladies and things like that.
Right.
And then they would go. Then they started going out and taking mirrors when she and Charlie Brown got in this business together. He wanted her to, because she had contacts, a lot of people, knew a lot of people, a great personality, and they would go to a person's home and take 5 or 6 mirrors in the back of the car, and they would just hang them hold them over the mantle or where they wanted them, and they'd say, I want this one or that one, whatever, and they'd hang the mirrors for them right there on the spot. And we did that. Perry and I did that a lot later on. It's really funny. I know Perry used to. he would always, before he get ready to hang a mirror, he'd ask the lady. He said, "Ma'am, can I have a glass of water?" And they go, and then he would drive the nail in the wall with the brad on it, and every now and then a wall or plaster would crack just a little bit.
Right.
And women would get really upset over that, but it wasn't anything that was going to be structurally wrong.
Right.
But he'd come back and
He didn't want them to see that.
he didn't want them to see the cracks, so he got a water. He drank a lot of water.
Right. That's pretty smart. He probably kept doing that. He probably liked it when they went and got their own pictures and hung them up themselves.
That's right.
Yeah. So yeah. So y'all did home visits basically.
Well, yeah, basically, yeah. When they first started,
Yeah.
I mean, we went to some of the Cannons down in
Okay.
Concord, Cannon Mills. I mean, we went to some really nice homes, and you saw a lot about what you might want in a home later on in life.
So let's get into your mom and your dad. So what characteristics did you pick up from your mother, Ruby Fink
Adams.
Adams? What characteristics do you think you got from her?
Well, I think both of them. I think I picked up. If you're going to do a job, you do it right,
Okay.
and you're gonna do the best you can, probably, and you got to enjoy life.
Okay.
I guess that's two of the main things.
Yeah. And your mom was kind of talkative. And your dad?
Just a little bit, and Daddy didn't say a whole lot.
He didn't say a lot, but he observed.
He observed. That's exactly right.
Do you think you got both those traits?
A little bit, not a
Yeah.
lot probably,
Yeah.
but a little bit. Yeah.
All right.
He wanted to talk about observing. One time we were coming back from my grandmother's, who lived up near Taylorsville, 50 miles away, and it was at late at night, and we had, I don't know, we were either in a 32 Chevrolet or a 29 A model Ford, and we were coming down the road, and policemen pulled us over, and we were, I don't know how old I was then, but I remembered it. I might have been 10, but Rosalie and Perry and I were all in the back seat, and we had a quilt over us, and we were asleep. And this policeman pulled my daddy over, and he talked to him a little bit, and he said, "What do you got under that quilt back there?" He thought my daddy was running liquor.
Running liquor.
And he put Daddy sort of smiled and pulled the quilt off, and here were these three kids back there asleep. And he said something to the fact, "Well, Mr. Ivy, you better get these kids home."
Go on, get him to bed. Yeah. And speaking of this, something I would ask you, do you remember any liquor, on any alcohol, any drugs, anything on any side of the families? Like grandparents, uncles, aunts?
Well, I remember the first drink of liquor I ever had. We were in Montana, and I guess your mother and I were with. I think that was the first time. Uncle Pink. When we got out there, he said, "Come in this bar." Went to this bar, and he said, "We're gonna have a drink to your wedding or whatever." Right. and he ordered us all to drink, and drank liquor. I told somebody I think I was 20-some years old when I had my first drink of liquor, but I don't know. But I never had any. I wasn't. I had a lot of buddies that drank a lot, but I never drank a lot. And we didn't have. Every now and then we might have a bottle of wine or something in the house, but not much. We weren't exposed to it like a lot of kids were back then for their parents.
Now, this is a Montana question. Did you ever think that you would end up living in Montana?
Thought about it.
When would that have been?
Oh, I don't know. Probably when I was in college, maybe.
Yeah.
But.
I mean, actually ranching or
Well, I thought about going out there coaching and possibly teaching, but I didn't go that route.
Okay. Yeah, I just wondered, did you ever talk to anybody about it, or I mean, like anybody out there?
Not really. No.
Yeah. Probably wouldn't have been much football out there anyway, right, during that time.
Well, they played
6 man.
They played a lot of 6-man football out there in some of the smaller towns. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And of course, I'd coached 6-man football at Patterson School for Boys there in Lenore. My senior year in college, after I got hurt.
Describe Perry to me.
Perry was just very quiet. Liked to play basketball, but he was working primarily most of the time when we were in high school. He was working, he'd go down to Kannapolis and work in the store there.
Pretty good basketball player? Because he's pretty tall.
Well, he's pretty tall, but he never played that much. He never played that much, but he enjoyed it.
Okay. Describe Rose.
She started working young. She worked in the State Theater. And I don't know how old she was, but I remember her working there because she used to get us tickets. She'd get us tickets to go to the theater. We'd go see Hopalong Casting when she was working there, and Gene Autry.
Right.
But she had done things. She basically worked her way through college.
Right. And she was she was the big sister, obviously. She had 2 baby brothers, basically.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, did she take on that
She'd
role?
let us know that every now and then.
Okay. All right. And because Grandma wasn't there,
That's right.
she kind of played the mother figure, so to speak. I guess her and Tweet.
Yeah, Tweet was there. Tweet come every day. Tweet was ready to go home though when we would. She'd be home by the time we get out of school.
Okay, so she just kind of worked in the house.
She'd come in and work in the house till we.
Did she cook?
Oh yeah.
Did she make the meal?
She made the meal. I know one time somebody was at the house. We were up there playing, been out in the woods or whatever,
Right.
and she came in and we'd ask her what we ever left if she'd make us something, whatever she's gonna make us for lunch. And she said, and she made I forgot what it was now, but it's something good. It might have been a blackberry pie or something. I think we went out and picked the blackberries, and she made a blackberry pie. And she said, boys, I'm gonna make this blackberry pie, but I don't want you to leave any, because I don't want anybody to know I made a blackberry pie and then leave something. So you can have this blackberry pie if you eat every bit of it.
Keep it in confidence. What's something that non-sweet that Tweet made that you really remember?
Nothing special really.
Yeah.
Everything she made was good.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Did she make bread?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We used to get a lot of bread. Back then you buy a loaf of bread for 15 cents.
Right.
I still think you're supposed to get 15 cents. Julia tells me that costs a little more than that. I'm
Yeah,
not
that's
sure.
what I heard. Yeah. All right. Well, let's go to the jump ahead a number of years here, and I want you to tell me about Robert. Robert, when he was a kid. Robert, let's just start with Robert. What was he like when he was little?
Well, Robert was born in when I was in the Army.
57.
Yeah, we were up in Laurel, Maryland.
Was he born at Maryland?
No, he was born in Danville. His mother had.
Yeah, you get that, man. This is gonna be on the video.
Gerald Adams. Hey, thank you for calling back. We had a tough time. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. No, that's great. Well, we got those 2 Thursday night games too, you know, this year, and that's, I don't know if that's good or bad for you, you know, with your traveling. That's a good job. You need a partner in that? I can work 3 months out of the year. That'd be good. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I'll. That was $100. That was that. Now that wasn't for last year by any chance, was it? In other words, you talked to somebody about sending it in for this year. Oh, okay, okay. I'll check it out. I don't know, because I just got this printout I've got. It's about a week old, maybe something like that. But I'll get that. Well, that could have been okay. But let me make a note here. Paid May 26th. Okay, check. That's great. I'll take that off. I'll take off the list here. Well, we had y'all maybe because we had where y'all had given that last year. How much did we say? $100. We had where y'all gave $100 last year. Maybe. Okay. Yeah. Well, we appreciate that very much. Yeah. 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 Okay, but I'll check that out and see what that went to. If they said something about it going to last year, whatever it could have been. You know what I'm talking about. Intended for this year, to go for this year. Well, I appreciate so much you called me back. Yeah, and like, well, come see us up here. Thank you so much, Mary. Appreciate you calling. You have a great day now. Bye-bye.
There we go, man. Raise $100.
Well, I think that's it's a question about whether they recorded it for last year or this year. The donation that they made. That's what. Yes.
Is that your notebook?
Yeah. Last year. I'll check that out.
So, Robert, 1957, February, he's born, Fort Meade, Maryland. He was probably in where was he, in Oregon Hill? Who did Mom stay with?
She stayed in with her parents.
Yeah, Sally.
Yeah.
Sally and GC.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
well, he was born in Danville, of course.
right. And what was it like having a kid, first kid?
Well, your mother did most of the raising on that because, you know, I was lucky enough they let me live off base. Lived in Laurel, and
so as soon as he was born, he went up to.
He probably stayed down there 2 weeks. They probably stayed down there 2 weeks after he was born, and then they moved up, and we lived in Laurel. Had a 1-bedroom apartment in Laurel, Maryland.
Was he quiet, loud?
Well, he was, you know, he was always running somewhere. He went from a crawl to a run.
Yeah. When did you? And Robert was a good athlete. When did you start realizing he was an athlete?
Well, he started playing ball, you know, at younger ages and things like that. You know, around 6th, 7th grade is when he started, and then junior high school, because they played in the Mill League there in Danville, and Dan River had a league, and we had the elementary school there. Coach we had a team in it, and he played in that, and sort of went from there.
Yeah. Now you started out coaching those teams, and then you kind of turned it over. So
yeah.
Did you do that on purpose, or did you get busier, or?
Well, Harold Metcalf
okay.
came up from. Well, he was an Appalachian graduate. He came up, and we hired him, and he taught physical education at Coach Rice Principal.
Right.
And he wanted to get into the coaching, so we
okay.
got him into the coaching there at the Mill.
So
and
you can kind of hang
he
around.
and I were still. I had to unofficially help him, but so that y'all could play ball over at Schofield.
Okay. All right. And Robert, as he got older, remember high school, he was still busy playing ball.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And he got. I remember. You know, he could shoot the ball well from outside, especially.
Right. Yeah. What about as he got older and he starts, like, you know, because he kind of flopped around there for a while. He was changing. Did you worry about that? You know, he was changing majors. His mom had died. He started, you know, he's changing majors. He's like.
Well, not really. You know, that's just part of adjusting. It's better to. When you see what he does today, teaching college kids and heading that department down there in Chapel Hill, you know, you realize that a lot of that stuff he was doing that it helped him to maybe help kids today.
Okay. All right. So life experience.
Life experience, right.
All right. And we'll go with Ann. So Ann's the baby. That'll leave me to last because, you know, I'm doing the interview. So Ann's the baby. She's born in 1960. She's the third. Did you know she was the final?
Nobody ever knows that.
Okay, so you didn't. It wasn't like we were going to have 3 kids.
No, nobody ever knows that.
Yeah. Did Mom say it was going to be the final kid?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. You just didn't know. So that was the final kid. What was Ann like?
Well, I remember y'all used to tell her baby Toodle can't fight.
Right.
I remember that.
And she would fight.
And she'd fight.
Yeah.
And been fighting ever since.
Yeah. So, did Robert remind you of anybody? Did he remind you of any of your relatives?
Not really.
Okay.
Not thinking.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Ann?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little grandma, little Rose.
Yeah, little.
Yeah.
She would, they, well, not, you know, she would just, she would just do things where you boys, y'all were a little more subdued in what y'all would do growing up and this type of thing.
She was bolder.
She'd bold. She'd just go out and do something just to be doing it.
Yeah.
The challenge, I guess, is probably what we call it.
Did this help her? Does this help her later in life?
I think it probably has, you know.
Yeah.
Probably has.
So what's she doing now?
I don't know what her title is, but she's over a bunch of people down there at East Carolina in elementary education. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, and then Richard, that's myself. I'm the middle child. Do you? What do you remember about me when I was a kid, little kid? Anything?
Well, I know that you used to do a lot in sport. Probably I remember playing Little League when you decided you were going to be a center on the football team, and it was just something that you had a knack for snapping the ball and not getting offsides and all that type of stuff. I remember that phase of it, and of course you when you started taking, I believe it was a guitar. You would go and you're supposed to be there for 30 minutes. The guy would keep you for an hour because he thought you were doing well. I do remember that. Yeah. And
so did you ever? Had you ever been around any musicians?
Well, we had an Uncle Hamp that was an organist or something. He played all kinds of.
Right.
He was a great uncle. He was Grandma Fink's brother.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was.
Hampton Alexander.
And then we had Fred Adams was a guitar picker.
Okay.
He used to be on the radio. And,
Did you ever hear him
his
play?
brother. He was Dad's brother. I never heard him really play on the radio, but I've heard him. He'd play.
Did you sit around and play country music?
Sit around and play country music.
Did he sing?
Yeah, he'd sing, but he wasn't all that great of a singer. But
Right.
he played with different groups up there, up around Taylorsville.
Did you ever hear Grandma's uncle play? Hampton Hamp?
Yeah, just one time he did something somewhere. There's a piano there, and he just sit down and just
Ripped it off.
Yeah, he was good. He would in today's society he had been more of a classical musician probably than just a regular musician.
And chiropractor.
Yeah, and chiropractor.
Yeah.
He's a chiropractor.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about Mom. Let's talk about Barbara Seliff here a little bit. All right. Now you met her. I think the story was I've got
Took Dallas Womack to the Dallas Womack played football for me, and he got hurt. He's in the hospital, and he said, Coach said it's this nurse over here you need to meet. And which I think he might have introduced us. I'm not sure, but anyway, he's the one that set it up. I remember that, and it just went uphill from there, downhill from there, uphill. I guess.
So describe her nature. Her what's some words that would describe Barbara Seliff?
Well, she was just a great lady. She was a great mother, a great wife. She didn't mind working, and she was really good with as kids. That was I think that was a thing that she was really wrapped up in, was making sure y'all grew up to be proper people.
Did y'all discuss her working, for financial reasons versus staying at home or anything? In that era, that was probably the beginning of the working mother.
Well, yeah. Well, it had started. Really, the working mother thing started during World War II.
Right.
Basically, but
Yeah. Did she want to work?
Yeah. She enjoyed working. It was I had the only time she said she didn't want to work was I had an opportunity to come to Appalachian way back, and it would have been in the alumni office doing some
Right.
things, and she said, "Oh, I'll move to Boone, but I'm not going to work in that hospital again." And she had worked in the summer up here.
Okay.
And I
She
said,
didn't
"Well,"
like
I said, "Well, I can't take a $10,000 pay cut, and you not work, and let's do this." So we passed that trip up.
Okay.
And I still wish Sulla that we had come that time, because it would have been a great environment for you kids to grow up in up here.
She
too.
probably found a job working.
Oh,
a job
she'd have done something. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, we respected wishes, each other's
Yeah.
wishes. On that.
Yeah. And did y'all discuss how you were gonna raise your kids, or it just kind of happened?
We just raised them the way we thought they should be.
Right.
We thought the same way about how they, we thought it's important for them to grow up morally straight, so to speak, and,
Right.
and to be educated and be able to do what they wanted to do, but it was going to have something to do with society.
Okay.
And I think y'all pretty well did that.
So society was so y'all both agreed to that? Because you were both kind of social workers in your own little.
Yeah,
I mean, teachers are social workers, and
yeah.
yeah, she was a social worker. She was like a social worker with a nursing degree.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And teachers are social
Oh,
workers.
yeah. But I mean, we just wanted y'all to do what you wanted to do, but do the best you could do with what you wanted to do,
So
or have the capability of doing it financially or whatever.
right. So here's a question from Robert. All right. You're in church, you're a kid, you and Perry start prickling Rose with a pen. Finish the story.
Well, we were in church one Sunday, and I don't know where Perry and I got those pens, but we had pens.
These are like pens, like needle pens.
Needle pens, like little single pen, not
like
safety pens.
sewing pens.
Sewing pens, right.
Yeah.
And he had one and I had one, and Rose was sitting between us. And I would stick her on one side and Perry would stick her on the other. And anyway, she was back there ready to cry, but she knew she wasn't supposed to cry in church. And we got home, and Perry, of all the Sundays that he was going to wash dishes, he volunteered to help wash the dishes that Sunday. And I was out in the yard. I'll never forget this. I was out in the yard, and Dad said, "Come here." And I walked over there, and he said, "Give me a hand." He gave me like you're going to shake hands left-handed. And about that time, he pulled that belt off, and he had a big waist and a big long belt.
Right.
And he said, and he started swinging that thing at me and chasing me in a circle. And one thing I learned out of that, I never stuck anybody in church with a pen after that. And Perry learned it was nice to wash dishes.
Right.
But that had a lot of influence, I think, on me.
Right. What are some jobs you applied? Did you ever apply for other jobs that you didn't get?
Yeah, I applied for a job then in eastern North Carolina. Where was that town?
From Brosville?
I was at Brosville. This was after the Army.
Okay, so
or
59.
after I got my master's, I guess
Right.
it was, right in that time sometime. And I applied for a job down in the eastern part of North Carolina somewhere, and this guy, asked me all these questions and everything, and but it was a job they already had somebody picked
Okay.
that was going to go in it,
Right.
and I knew that, and that was the only really job that I ever applied for. And I really didn't. Somebody told me, but said you need to.
Was it a teaching, coaching job or a
It's an
principal?
administrative job, administrative job, and it's one of those deals that I never ever really thought a whole lot about it since then. But it wasn't that great of a town, but it was, it was a little different situation for us than been that. It would have been somewhere south of. It was I can name the town now, but it was
Rocky Mountish.
no, it was more south, more down towards Fort Bragg,
Okay.
down close to Fort Bragg, and.
I'm glad you didn't move there.
Yeah, but it was a good job and whatever. And I'd asked the guy. they had a superintendent of schools, but they just had one high school principal.
Okay.
They had one high school and a superintendent of schools and maybe a couple of elementary schools. And I asked him, I said, well, what does the superintendent do here? He just supervised me? And the guy the guy chairman of the school board, he was I'll never forget, he said, you're very perceptive. And I just, after he and I had talked a little bit, I figured that wasn't such a promotion anyway.
But you went down there to interview.
I went down there to interview for it, yeah. And in fact, I was in summer school up here when I went and did that.
Okay.
And I interviewed for a job at, I believe, Spencer, down near Salisbury for a job. And they had somebody that was already picked. They were just going through the motion.
Yeah. So did you think you would end up back in North Carolina?
Well, I was just checking. That was a possibility at that point.
Right.
That would have been the time that I would have done that, right after I got out of the Army. That was the summer after I got out of the Army.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm trying to think of anything else I got here. So, so we talked about you thought about being a cowboy, okay? Did you ever think that you would end up like coaching college or anything? Was that ever a thought, even when you were coaching high school?
Only time I thought about coaching college if I'd have come back up here full time to get my master's.
Right.
If something would have come up as a graduate assistant or whatever, but back then, with 3 kids to raise, you needed a little more money. Once you start raising a family, your priorities change a little bit as to what you want to do and what you can afford to do and what you can't afford to do and that type of stuff.
So if I asked your former players to rate you as a coach, and not just a coach, but as a person, what do you think they would say about you? Yeah.
I have no idea.
They say X and O guy, he's more of a people person. He was, he cared about
you need to call. I'll give you a list of them. You can call them and see what I can tell you.
All right. Yeah. I mean, what was your priority as a coach? Was it just to win? Was it to teach them?
Well, you got to teach them. You teach them how to win. You teach them to do it in a sportsmanlike manner.
Okay.
I think that's the two. The important thing. You want to win, but it's not a win at all costs if it's going to be detrimental to their health or something of that nature. It's you're just trying to get them to excel and come out on top of everything.
Yeah. And what would you tell them after a game? Say if they lost a game, and they've given their all.
You just tell them you boys played a good ball game. You just didn't play well enough. You got to play better. You got to improve on this. You got to improve on that. You let someone, we had told you not to do certain things, and you let this happen. You can see it right there on the film where you did it. And but you never know. And what you look at is what happened to these kids after they got out. I talked to a boy the other day, Buck Heiler. He lives down. He had been an engineer or something up in Pennsylvania. He went to Virginia Tech. Didn't play football, but in college. But he was a good football player. And I talked to him the other day about what now he just lays around the beach down there, I think. And he graduated from high school in probably about 1960, something like that. But then you got people like Sam Boyd, whose dad, a great guy. His dad's a great guy, but he'd worked in the mill. Most of his boys. Sam had 2 older brothers and a sister, and he had and his dad had worked in the mill. But then when he got older, he had this pickup truck, and he'd go up to Stewart, Virginia, and get a truckload of apples and come down by the side of the highway and off of Highway 58 there and just park beside the road and sell apples off his truck. And then Sam played ball, and I took him down to Catawba College and helped get him in down there. And he retired as CEO of Clyde Pearson Furniture, which is a Mega $1 Million outfit. He done exceptionally well. I mean, he's one that went. You know, he had a good family life, but they didn't.
Four.
You know, and had a big kid, and they came out of that post-depression years type stuff through World War II. His parents did, and you know, he did well, and his brothers did well.
Yeah. Did you ever want to play another position on the football team? I mean, had you had the skill?
Oh yeah, I was going to be. When I first, I was going to be a back, you know, blocking back or something like that. But I was too slow for that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long did it take you to figure that out?
It took when I went to Salisbury to play ball. It took them about a week. We had spring practice. Back then, you had high school had spring practice.
So you were playing. You were actually playing.
I was playing fullback, and they said you need to go down here and coach Barnes. You know, and that was because of my speed. I didn't have the speed I needed to be a fullback.
How similar is the Army to football?
Is the Army?
The Army. How similar is the Army to football?
Well, you got a leader. You got to do what your leader tell you to do, and both of them, you know.
All right.
And just football helps you in discipline for the Army. I think that was, you know, because once you go through spring practice or 2 days before season start, you know, boot camp's easy.
Anyway, Robert had one more question. I can't remember what it is, so I'm gonna. Sorry about that, Robert. Anyway, what are you going to do? What would you do if you retired?
Well, I would continue to go water walking every day if I had a place.
Okay.
If I was here, I'd continue to go water walking every day. And
You think you'd miss this?
oh yeah. You miss talking to people, you know, just like the lady called a while ago.
Right,
you know,
right.
It just those type things are sort of interesting as to.
Can you tell a day when you haven't talked to people like that? Can you tell what it's? I mean, does it kind of go by differently?
Well, yeah, you know, you have like anything else, you have your good days and your bad days.
Yeah.
And but
I
I enjoy most days are good. Just some of them are better than others, as
Right.
I tell people. And I think that's if you're not in a situation where all your days are good, some of them are better than others, you might want to be looking about what you want to do in life.
So is a good day a money making day?
Money making day usually is a good day, yeah. But I've had good days that weren't money making days,
Right.
and I've had bad days that were money making days too.
Right.
Depends on what they want to go with it. That's a lot to do with that.
Is this the best job you've ever had?
I think so. The most enjoyable job.
Right.
You know, I've enjoyed every job I've ever had, though. Really, I mean, it was a lot of fun jobs, and you know, back coaching and things of that nature, and interviewing and applying and hiring school personnel. All those jobs have been good jobs, but this is I don't know. It's just it's a little higher level. You're dealing with more finances and things like that, but what I enjoy about it is getting an opportunity to see people. You either see people that the people that I played ball with, people in school here when I was, you know, a lot of them are gone now, and they're not around anywhere except in a grave. But you enjoy seeing that. You enjoy seeing kids come back that played ball since I've been here in this job. See them come back and get to talk to them about what they've done in life and things of that nature.
So, speaking of the grave, say you're in your grave, not to be too morbid, and they're talking about you around here. What are they going to say?
Bob Sneed told me. Bob Sneed always said he's going to speak at my funeral. He told me the other day that he knew what he was going to say. He said the first thing he'd probably say is that he's probably wanting to know if he were here, if he's up there talking, he would say if he were here, the first thing he'd want to know, he'd want to ask everybody, have you paid your Yosef dues this year? I thought that's pretty good.
So, do you think that eventually they got money or in different ways from being a dorm counselor to, you know, they took care of you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I went, see, when I came, it cost $300 a year to come.
Right.
That was for everything. And that was my first year. Then my second year, I went from, that's when Korea broke out.
Okay.
And I went from this being a six tackle to starting.
Because guys left.
Because guys left. A lot of guys volunteered for the Army or Air Force, whatever.
Okay.
And a lot of people, and then we had the graduates that went out of here and that type of stuff. And I went, you know, I went from those levels to doing that. And then my summer of my junior year, they were going to let me come, after I got hurt, they were going to let me come back. And I got this phone call in the middle of the summer from Coach Broom, I guess it was, and said that Mr. Pritchett was looking for a resident manager of Justice Hall, and that he'd take Lester Hart and Bob Clendenin or me, and that Lester was running Newland, and Bob was a mailman over there. Congratulations, you're the new resident manager of Justice Hall. Not do you want it, whatever that, but that was a great experience, and especially for references later on, you know. But that was, and then my senior year, I was doing that, and then I didn't get to go back out for football. I broke my ankle that first year I was in that dorm thing that lasted 2 days, and then my senior year I didn't get to go back out for football, and I was running. Got another phone call, said that the guy from Patterson School for Boys down here was looking for a 6-man football coach, and Coach Duggan said I should take the jobs.
Congratulations.
So I went down, congratulations. So I went down to that, and that was a good experience. And both of those jobs, I think, helped me get my job in Virginia, was, you know, because of just from the references it came from.
Yeah. And I got one more question. You don't have to answer this if you don't want to. What are the difficult things that you've been through that made you a better person? What are the hardest things? What's some hard things you had to go through?
Well, I guess Army wasn't that bad because really it was peacetime, but it disrupted your career, but you learned a lot to help you later in life. Of course, the deaths in the family that was tough.
Right.
And that's, you know, that when you think about it, it's that's the only really bad things that have happened that that really affect you. You know.
So did it make you? What did it give you? Give you
Yeah,
a spiritual base? It gave you strength. What did it give you?
That's right. I think it gave you strength. If you go through some of that stuff, you go through deaths in family and any disruptive type thing in family. It gives you, it helps you build up your stamina against anything that goes wrong. Basically, it helps you know how to, I don't know what the right word is, but cope with. Yeah, help you cope with situations that some people think are major, but things that I've been through in my life probably what a lot of people think are major things now they have to go through are minor to me. You know, I think that's pretty much the case.
Glass full, half empty.
That's right.
Which one is it?
What?
Is it half full or half empty? You're an optimist or a pessimist?
I think I'm more of an optimist, really. I think it's half full.
Right.
Really. Yeah.
And what's the biggest single payment you've ever gotten as Joseph director? How much money was it?
Lord, I don't even know. I've got some. I guess some of these endowed things.
100,000.
Yeah, probably maybe. See, most of mine come annual.
Right.
And I have people that give anywhere from $10 to 15,000 basically, something like that, you know. But it's I'd really like to get back to get some people. I noticed when I first came here that former athletes, our percentage of them giving back was bigger than it is today. Our younger people going out, and they're going out into a more where the economy is much better off than everything it was years ago. Salaries are bigger and all of this type of stuff, and I'd really like to see some of our younger people step up and in their giving and in a percentage of people giving. You know, we have 450 athletes a year out of here,
right?
And something I'd like to devise some type plan where we. And I've been thinking about that incident of this week about what we can do to get people that were athletes themselves one time and on scholarship or not on scholarship. That's what they could do.
I know what to do. You make them compete. You say, well, you know, somebody they hated. What's the team they had hated?
Yeah.
Says they got 40% raw.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot to that.
Can you beat Wofford? Can you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever. I mean, that's what I would find out with the other.
Well, see, we do better than most schools we played back then. In what we make, because see, we raised them.
Yeah, I don't mean money. I mean percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like is Wofford out? You know, are they at 40%? Like VMI,
of their athletes.
VMI is like 80.
80% of their
Something is ridiculous. Yeah, percentage of people that graduate from there
that
money,
give
money,
back.
Yeah, give money to the school, but it's a different environment. But it's
Well, but you have that here. You have a lot of people that give, you know, and but I don't know why we have a lot of younger people that haven't stepped up, and that's something that needs to be done. And of course, these young people will eventually get a little older, and they might feel a little more secure, this type of thing with their finances. But
can you hold your phone up from the goal part? Your telephone over there. Hold your phone up.
right here.
No, your goal phone.
Oh, here.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. There's that. Who's this guy over here?
And
Who's that?
well, that's John Wayne. That's
Yeah.
I watched him on television last night.
Right. Yeah. And so that's your letter code from what year?
Well, that would have been that wasn't mine. We had a guy that died that had that lived out in Gastonia, and his son sent that up here and said you might find a use for this.
Right.
And John Wayne looked a little cold, so we figured we better put it on him.
You know you're 2 inches taller than John Wayne.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. It's good. Anyway, all right. Well, I'm about done here. You done?
Anytime you say.
I'll hit the button here. Oh, can you sing the fight song? Aye,
not I. Like us, nobody like us. We are the Mountaineers, Mountaineers, Mountaineers. Always a winning, always a grinning, always a feeling fine. You bet ho. Oh, man. Is he in town?
I wonder if I can't hear it. I'm headphones in.
Oh, his line's busy. His cell phone's busy.
Oh, really? Okay.
So that means that.
That'll be a quote.
No, that'll be, no reason I say that. That's a good sign. That's a good sign because that means he's with it.
Oh, yeah. Still busy?
No, I might have dialed wrong or something. Robin Hood, I got a movie producer here who wants to ask you a question.
So I got the pin question. What was this? I left my phone in the car. What's the second question? Oh, yeah. Okay. That's good, man. I'm gonna hang up. All right.
See you.
How come you never got any land on the Blue Ridge Parkway? That's it.
Well, Blue Ridge Parkway is not a whole lot higher than our property is.
Right.
And in fact, the creeks that run by the Blue Ridge Parkway are at points are lower than we are.
Okay.
And it's hard to buy land on the parkway because the government owns right of way both ways.
Okay. All right. That was a good politically correct answer. Do you wish you had some land next to the Blue Ridge Parkway?
That'd be nice, but I like it where I live. Really, I think because we got a great view. We got we're on a safe street. We're on a dead end, and you someone probably breaking the house after I say this.
Right.
But being where we are, people security wise,
Right.
people are reluctant to come up into a street like we have. It's only one way out.
Right. It's cul-de-sac, basically.
Yeah. That have to come up and do something as far as.
I never thought of it. That's true.
As robbery or.
It's not like they can come down the hill and get you. They do.
That's-
It's a lot
that's
of work.
right.
If they're trying that hard,
Yeah,
they can't carry anything out anyway.
that's exactly right.
All right. I asked the question. There you go, Robert.
Well, in 1932, on a hot August morn, a child by the name of Gerald Clark Adams was first born. Oh, his family loved that babe. He was so adorned. Then he stuck out his hand and said, "Give me some money and fill out this Yosef form." That's what he did that August day. His destiny was on his way. So get it out, your pocketbook, and digging deep, he's got you hooked. Ay-yi-yi-yikes. Gerald Clark Adams was born on August 28, 1932 in Salisbury, North Carolina. He was the son of Thomas Clark and Ruby Fink Adams. Gerald had an older sister and brother, Rosalie Thomas Singh, and Perry Franklin Adams. One thing was for sure, Gerald had always been, and will always be, the baby of the family. Gerald was a friendly and polite child. His father was an auto mechanic, and his mother eventually got into the mirror business, which turned into the picture frame and antique business. Gerald was also known for his ability to ask for money. His sister Rose likes to tell the story about when he would stick out his hand at the kitchen table and say, "Where's mine?" Little did Gerald know at the time that he would further develop the talent for asking for money as the years went by. Thorny Birdsong worked for Miss Ruby Adams. She cooked and cleaned while Miss Ruby was out doing her business. She was famous for her brown sugar pies. Legend has it that Tweet, you see Dad couldn't pronounce Thorny Birdsong, so he just called her Tweet for short, would make 2 pies, one for the family and one for her favorite baby Gerald. She'd say, "Gerald, you eat that whole pie so Miss Ruby won't get mad at me." Gerald loved to go to cowboy movies every Saturday with his buddies. He'd go to church on Sundays, and sometimes on Sunday afternoons he'd head up to the Fishers for homemade ice cream. During the summers of his teenage years, Gerald would take the train to Montana to visit his Uncle Pinckney Mayberry and Aunt Edith, and some of his first cousins. Soon those cowboy movies became reality as Gerald would get to ride the trails of Uncle Pink's 24-square-mile ranch that overlooked the Rocky Mountains. Gerald attended Granite Quarry Elementary School and high school until Christmas of his junior year. Then he transferred to Boyden High School, that was the city school in Salisbury, so he could pursue one of his passions, football. Gerald was determined to go to college and if he could, play college football. He stuck with his plan and graduated from Boyden in 1950. That fall, he enrolled in the teacher education program at Appalachian State Teachers College in Boone, North Carolina. Gerald loved his years at Appalachian. He made a lot of lifelong friends and got to pursue his love of football. He played JV his first year and joined varsity his sophomore year. He had a few pet names in college. His old yearbooks often referred to him as either Jerry or Salisbury. He played offensive line and majored in physical education and history at ASU. He even took a few lessons in dancing while he was at college. A football game at Tampa, Florida would prove a defining moment in young Gerald's life. He received a kidney injury that would end his football career and launch his career as a coach and administrator. He came back to ASU as a manager of the football team and resident advisor for the dormitory. His dream of winning over the cheerleader as the big football hero was over. In 1954, Gerald graduated from ASU and moved to Danville, Virginia to take a job teaching and coaching at Brosville High School in the Pittsylvania County school system. Rumor has it that in addition to teaching history, government, and physical education, Gerald coached football, baseball, basketball, and sometimes served as the cheerleading sponsor. He very quickly joined the local Lutheran church. He'd been raised, as he would call it, a good Lutheran, and his mother always stressed the importance of education in church, while his father was a role model for consistent hard work and fairness. During the fall of 1954, Gerald ended up in the hospital again. This time, it was because one of his players had been injured. The story goes like this. He saw a pretty brunette nurse and didn't have time to talk to her. He asked one of his players if they knew the nurse that was working that day. Ironically, Gerald was set up on a date with a supposed nurse. When they met, it wasn't the same nurse, but another native North Carolinian, Barbara Ann Setliff. Barbara grew up on a tobacco farm just across the state line in Argan Hill, North Carolina. She attended nursing school at Danville Memorial Hospital and was now working in the hospital. The two quickly fell in love and were married in Ascension Lutheran Church in Danville the following March. They went to Montana on their honeymoon. They got an apartment a few blocks from the church and lived there for 2 years while Barbara worked at the hospital and Gerald continued teaching and coaching. In 1956, Gerald and Barbara left for Fort Meade, Maryland, while Gerald did a hitch with the United States Army. Fort Meade was the home of the 2nd Armored Cavalry. Gerald drove tanks for a while, but then the Army found out about Gerald's administrative background. They sent him to personnel school in Fort Dix, New Jersey for a few months to train. Barbara got a part-time job at Prince George's County Hospital near Laurel. Gerald had gone from making $3,200 a year as a teacher and coach to $90 a month in the Army. He and Barbara rented an apartment for $50 a month and scrounged up some used furniture to make the place look like a home. In 1957, their first child was born, Robert Dale Adams. He came out running and continued to do so until his knees went bad. Gerald and Barbara loved being parents, and Robert kept them on the move. In 1958, Gerald was honorably discharged from the United States Army. They came back to Danville, where Gerald took his old job back at Brosville High School, while Barbara did some part-time work and raised little Robert. They rented a house on Saunders Lane in Westover Hills. The Adams would spend the next 33 years in Westover Hills. Around this time, Gerald began working on his master's degree. This was encouraged by the fact that a second son, Richard Clark Adams, was born around Christmas in 1958. 2 children were hard to raise on a teacher-coach's salary. Virginia Ann Adams was born in June of 1960. By this time, the Adams had bought a small white house on Brown Lane. Life was moving on. They attended church, go to work, visit relatives, and Gerald would spend summers and weekends commuting to Boone to finish his master's degree in school administration. In May of 1962, Gerald was conferred a master's degree at Appalachian State Teachers College. In 1963, Gerald was offered the job as principal at Coates Elementary School. Life couldn't be better. He would be principal at the school that his children would attend, and Barbara could still pick up part-time work at the hospital. The years on Brown Lane were great for the family. There were lots of children to play with, and lots of couples around the same ages of Gerald and Barbara. In 1963, Mr. Luther Brown, a fellow Lutheran, heard that Gerald was looking for some land to build a house on. He came up to Gerald at church and said he had something he may be interested in. It ended up being the lot next to Mr. Brown's house on Westover Drive. Gerald and Barbara bought the lot for $3,200 and put a $16,000 house on that lot. A new home, new job, and 3 children. It was truly life in the 60s. Holidays and parties played an important part in the household. Barbara had grown up on a tobacco farm with many brothers and sisters, so there just wasn't a lot of time and money for parties. But on the Adams Fink side, let's just say Germans can always come up with a reason to eat and give away presents. So Christmas and birthdays were always a big deal at the Gerald and Barbara Adams house. Barbara eventually ended up with a job as a public health nurse for the school system. 2 of her children would end up being influenced by this and becoming health educators. Gerald coached some Little League football and basketball for Robert and Richard's teams. The children were growing up. By 1966, all 3 children were at Coates School, and everyone was very busy and having fun. In 1969, Gerald got another so-called promotion. He was offered the job at the newly integrated junior high school. Gerald was always looking for new challenges, so he took the newly formed position as principal at Blair's Junior High School. Gerald was also highly active in the church, Sertoma Club, Appalachian Alumni Association, and various educational professional organizations. As the newspaper headline read one day, "Adams, glutton for responsibility." The children continued to grow up, and life kept on a-rolling. 2410 Westover Drive. Anne was into her friends and socializing. Richard started getting interested in music. Robert spent most of his time with some kind of sports ball in his hand. Barbara just enjoyed her favorite job, being a mother to her children, and when she wasn't doing that, she'd be going to civic clubs asking for glasses and dental checkups for the underprivileged children of Pittsylvania County. The 70s were good and bad for the Adams family. The death of Ruby Adams, Gerald's mother, George Coleman Setliff, Barbara's father, and Barbara's sister had died of cancer. However, the children were continuing to be active at school, home, and church. Around 1976, Barbara was diagnosed with cancer. The next several years were difficult for Gerald and the children. Robert had gone to Mars Hill College in North Carolina for a year, but had decided to return home to focus on school. Richard graduated from high school in 1977 and went to James Madison University to be a music major. Anne was cheerleading, playing in the band, and being the do-it-all at Tunstall High School. Gerald was just making a living and trying to take care of a sick wife. In late July 1978, Barbara died. She insisted on dying at home with her family. Gerald spent time grieving for the next several years. Richard went back to James Madison. Robert continued to live at home and attend school. Anne stayed around for a semester and then attended Appalachian. Anne going to Appalachian was a great idea because it gave Gerald a good excuse to do what always made him happy, being around Appalachian State and especially Appalachian football games. In 1982, Gerald ran into one of his former students, Martha Tate. She was younger and very beautiful and had 2 sons, John and David. They were soon married and were married for years. Gerald was especially good with John because of John's special school needs. In 1991, Gerald received a gift of a lifetime. Robert was married to Gwen and living in North Carolina with children. Richard was working as a musician and counselor in Stanton, Virginia. And Anne was married to Scott with their children and living in Virginia. Gerald was ready for a change. Appalachian State University offered Gerald the job as the fundraiser for the athletic department. That's right, the Yosef director. It was an easy decision for the college. The man had a black and gold van with Yosef license plates. Gerald sold the house in Westover Hills and moved back to Boone. His office was next to the football field. Gerald worked very hard for the next several years. The money was coming in, and Gerald got to stick his hand out just like when he was at the kitchen table. But this time he'd say, "Where's Yosef's money?" It was a match made in Appalachian heaven. A few years later, Gerald was attending an alumni event, and lo and behold, a cheerleader was in the room. Julia Ross Harvard had graduated from ASU a few years after Gerald's. She'd been a cheerleader and an education major at ASU. She moved to St. Augustine, Florida, where it's warm, not cold like it is in Boone, and coached and taught. She married and had 3 children and grandchildren. Her husband had died in the late 1970s. Their lifelines had been very similar. Dad called me up one day and was telling me I should go sell some Dr. Toothbrush tapes to this lady he'd met from Jacksonville. His line was, "She's a neat lady, Richard, a really neat lady. You should go see her." So I went to Jacksonville, rented a car, and I met this lady. I probably netted about $2 on the trip, but I got to meet the woman who was to become my stepmother. Julia was a perfect match for Gerald. She liked football, was independent, pretty, and made him eat the right foods and exercise. She also grew to love him very much, and Gerald was right for her, a football player that didn't tell her what to do. They were married soon, and the wedding was an event. Both sets of children and grandchildren were there, family, friends, and yes, even Yosef attended the wedding. They eventually bought a house in Boone. Julia teaches part-time at Appalachian and is also alumni president. Gerald Adams turned 70 this year. He's probably lived about 200 years of life during that time. He stands for family, church, community, and people. Gerald knows, even when raising money for Appalachian, that it's still all about treating people like people. It's a value he instills in everyone he is around. Happy birthday, Merry Christmas, and lots of love from your family.
Aye, 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 'cause nobody like us. We are the Mountaineers, Mountaineers, Mountaineers. Always a winning, always a grinning, always a feeling fine.
Aye, 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 'cause nobody like us. We are the Mountaineers, yes sir. We always a winning, always a grinning, always a feeling fine. Yes sir now. Aye, 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 'cause nobody like us. We are the Mountaineers.